this so many times, and hey guys, I know some people might be getting annoyed, but you've got to admit that it sure seems like it's been working, because they just keep talking and revealing more and more and more about it.
Apparently there is an Epstein list, and Trump is going to give it to us.
You should focus on Clinton. You should focus on the president of Harvard, the former president of Harvard. You should focus on some of the hedge fund guys. I'll give you a list. These guys lived with Jeffrey Epstein.
Now this is yet another...
I'll give you a list. Why don't you give the list to the FBI and have them focus on it? I'm just saying. Maybe that's a better idea. That's just me though, right?
Change of the story. First, we heard that the Epstein list was covered up by the Dems. Then we heard there is no list. Then we heard the list was made up by Democrats. Now we're hearing that there is a list.
You say that the FBI...
To be fair, it's very clear that Trump referring to the list of people that he has, this is not the Epstein list in the form that it's going to be discussed in this clip. Yeah, obviously, like, it's dishonest to frame it that way. But at the same time, if you have a... Like, you know, if you have a crime and you think that somebody could be implicated, wouldn't you want to go down and check people off the boxes to make sure that they're not bad boys? That's what I would do.
Has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it.
We need to release the Epstein list.
It's sitting on my desk right now.
The DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list.
No incriminating client list.
Made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. Focus on Clinton, the president of Harvard. I'll give you a list.
This all comes after shocking revelations about new implications of our most powerful leaders, both former and current presidents. Good. But now, given the fact this story won't go away, Trump is zeroing in on his political enemies and saying they're the ones everyone should be focusing on.
They should focus on the fact that Larry Summers from Harvard, that Bill Clinton, who you know very well, and lots of other friends, really close friends of Jeffrey Summers, should be spoken about. Because, you know, Jeffrey Epstein should be spoken about. And they should speak about them, because they don't talk about them. They talk about me. I have nothing to do with the guy.
Now, the reason we haven't been speaking about these people is because, of course, the DOJ covered everything up, not giving any names. And, of course, people were extremely suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, we need a few sacrifices. I've said this before. I'll say it again. We need to have a few people get fucking pulled up.
Of this sudden change.
What is
this? We want to talk about everyone. Let's be clear. No matter who they are, left or right, we want them all to go down.
That's what I see. That's what I don't understand, is that people turn this into like a like this is a partisan issue. I don't think this is a partisan issue. I think this is the people versus the elites. It's not Republicans versus Democrats. I think that anybody who's convinced that there's one side that's doing all of the bad stuff and the other side isn't doing any of the bad stuff, you're lost in the fucking sauce, man. You are. Obviously, both sides are engaging in this.
They were on the island. If they are in the files, we want it all to come out. That's been everyone's stance from the beginning. And it seems like Trump is finally buckling on the idea that he can just ignore the problem, that he can just pretend it doesn't exist. And now it looks like he's shifting to deflecting to some of the other people who are also seemingly implicated.
Hedge fund guys, they're all over the place. You ought to be speaking about Bill Clinton, who went to the island 28 times. I never went to the island.
Now, if true, that's a shocking amount of times. We don't know if Trump has special briefings that we don't have access to right now.
Well, I mean, he obviously does, but like it doesn't matter because, like, again, the way he's handled it has burned the trust of the people. So before the Epstein thing, I think that people had the trust that Trump would make the right decision. It's like when Trump bombed Iran, that was like a massive play, and people's trust that he had built up by, you know, getting rid of DEI and getting rid of, you know, different people in government that, you know, Republicans didn't like, and shutting down the border. Like, he delivered on a lot of these other things. And so when he bombed Iran, everybody had his back. I think this definitely is a massive withdrawal of that goodwill.
Clinton denied going to the island. There are some people
It's actually not going to let up support for the Iranian attack. It has nothing to do with my opinion. I'm talking about public polling numbers. Yeah, I supported bombing them too, but it doesn't matter what I think. I'm talking about the public at large.
Said, oh, maybe he went once or twice, but 28 times. I've never heard that number before. If true, I hope that comes out. I hope we get verification of that. Of course, it wasn't just on the island where these bad things happened.
Oh, what a
And the other
surprise.
surprising twist in this, where the narrative is sort of changing, is that Trump is softening his stance on this letter that he supposedly wrote. Initially, he said, it doesn't exist. I never could have written it. Now he's saying, oh, it could exist, but if it does, someone else wrote it.
To know what they're talking about. Now, somebody could have written a letter and used my name, but that's happened a lot. All you have to do is take a look at the dossier, the fake dossier.
So seemingly they're laying the
I don't think that that is softening language. I think that him saying that it doesn't exist and he didn't do it are effectively the same thing. Like, I think that they're basically the same thing. Because they're saying both of them are completely 100%, I did not do this, I had nothing to do with this, period. That's not softening. I don't think it is.
groundwork for this
Personally,
birthday
I don't
book
think so.
to finally be released to the public as we've all wanted. Trump is saying, look, maybe it does have my name on it, but I didn't personally write the note. Now, whether you believe that is totally up to you, but this is such a shocking change in stance from how they've been treating the Epstein files. Previously, we were literally told, look, there's nothing we can charge third parties with. There's no evidence we have on anyone. Now, the Trump administration is meeting privately with Ghislaine Maxwell. Supposedly, there's 100 new people she has mentioned, and Trump
What
is
are the
mentioning
odds?
evidence that he says they have, or some knowledge he says he has, of Clinton
That's
being on Jeffrey
crazy.
Epstein's island 28 times.
That's a
which,
lot.
if true, is like so incredibly damning. And these people.
It's damning, but it's not condemning. Like, it's not for sure. Like, I wouldn't say based off of that, like, Bill Clinton is 100% like a weird pedo rapist. I don't think any logical person could not make that conclusion. But I sure think that you definitely need to look into it. It's not proof, but it sure is a fuckload of evidence, isn't it?
People should be locked up. The problem is, of course, it cuts both ways.
be
If you're
real.
going to implicate one person, you have to go after everyone.
Yeah.
Now, Trump was asked if he was ever briefed on his name being in the Epstein files. Of course, it was reported by the Wall Street Journal that he was told, and that's when he started
How many
acting.
points on a graph do you need? I think that you need at least 29. You need at least 29 points on a graph. 28 is just like, I don't know. I mean, it could go either way, right? But 29? Oh, yeah, for sure.
Being very weird about the Epstein files, saying it was all a hoax. He once again denies it, though, saying he wasn't.
And again, by the way, I think it's cause for investigation. And I like, all I'm saying is that I wouldn't, like, I'm not assuming he's guilty. If you want my opinion, I think he's guilty. But I wouldn't want the government to function that way, right? That's I think that he is, but you still have to figure that out.
No, I was never briefed. No.
Now, we have really good reporting on the fact that this seems like a blatant lie. The White House barely even denied it, and the DOJ didn't deny it, so this seems to be just a blatant cover-up as Trump appears to be deflecting onto other people, which, again, we should focus on those people as well, but we can do both at the same time. We should be talking about all of these people. Now, in light of recent talks about Ghislaine Maxwell getting pardoned, stuff like that, Trump is
In my opinion, I think they 100% should pardon her if she can give out names and evidence. It's just a trolley problem to me. If she can condemn and implicate 5 really powerful people, it's absolutely worth giving her her freedom in order to do that because it's a greater good. It's the easiest decision that you could ever make. Yeah, I mean, it's easy cost benefit. Yeah, like that is the logical thing to do. I understand people might not like it. It doesn't sound good. Doesn't matter. It is good. There's a lot of things that don't sound good, but they are good. What if she's pardoned to lie? Well, of course they wouldn't pardon her until they confirmed it. It's not like she'd just give out the names and they'd let her go. They would have to figure out whether it was true or not, and upon finding out that it was true, then they would pardon her. That's what I would obviously be okay with. Disagree completely. Well, and I want to pull up one person just real quick. Why do you disagree with this viewpoint? Why do you think that she shouldn't be pardoned? Because she did those things knowing of what she's doing? No, yeah, I know. But would you rather... So would you rather... Let's say you have a gun. Would you rather shoot one bad person, or would you rather shoot 5 bad people? Just because she knows something that politicians don't want to show the American people, one bad person gets pardoned, think about it? No. Just how is it the morally good decision? She's implicated in all of this? I don't even think that you're... Let's just move on.
Now said it's not the time to talk about pardons yet, although once again, he doesn't rule it out. And then he says that if you're going to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, if you're going to talk about Epstein, talk about Clinton, don't talk about Trump.
A lot of people are asking me about pardons. Obviously, this is no time to be talking about pardons. But a lot of people have asked about pardon. This is just not a time to be talking about pardons. Todd will come back with whatever he's got.
Somebody says I'm getting gaslighted by these Andes. I'm not getting gaslighted. It seems like a lot of these people they can't gaslight. That's not what's happening.
You're making a very big thing over something that's not a big thing. You should be talking about, if you're going to talk about that, talk about Clinton, talk about the former president of Harvard, talk about all of his friends, talk about the hedge fund guys that were with him all the time. Don't talk about Trump.
Well, how about we talk about
everybody,
all of you guys? Because while Trump tries to separate himself and say, oh, you can't talk about me, you got to talk about all these other guys, it just seems like we should be talking about everyone. And
also, by the way, I think it's fair to talk about Trump more because he's the active president of the United States. And the active president of the United States being potentially incriminated in one of the worst things possible could put his position at risk, and it could compromise his integrity and his ability to make decisions through blackmail. That's the reason why it is much more important and much more prescient that Donald Trump is discussed than Bill Clinton. Like, obviously, they should both be discussed, but one of them is an immediate, direct, instantaneous problem that could have consequences. Bill Clinton isn't doing anything. He's probably in a nursing home at some point, right? Like, he's done. Don't you think he's already been blackmailed? I don't know if he is or not. But what I'm saying is that I don't think it's fair to say that all of these people are equal. Prince Andrew doesn't have the same type of social capital and political power that the president of the United States does. And neither do any of these random retards that run hedge funds. Like, yeah, obviously they're really powerful, but compared to the president, they're not.
In the Epstein files, and now as the White House softens its approach on the complete denial and shutting up of the Epstein files, now the goal is just to distance the president from any liability, which is why Ghislaine Maxwell's private meeting with him is so concerning. Today, the president was also asked about whether he was part of the decision for the House Republicans not to release the Epstein files. He says this is just conspiracy theories.
Did you ask House Republican leaders to not vote on the resolution about releasing the files?
I was never involved in that. I'm focused on making deals. I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are.
Once again, this is kind of a funny idea, being that this administration and the surrogates are part of the people who pushed this whole thing from the very beginning.
It's really strange to me. These people wanting to play defense for Trump, and all the people, the 100,000 documents and thousands of hours of videos are really going to go down with those people. I don't understand why you can't just be against the behavior in general and want to see justice be enacted regardless of who's implicated or not. Like, this is like one of the worst things that a person can do. And I think that, you know, you owe it to the people that are the victims to try to act in their best interest to help them. Like, that's what I think.
To call it a conspiracy theory now, to be making fun of people who are asking basic questions about that, is just bizarre and strange again. But I do think it's worth noting this radical shift in the approach of talking about the Epstein files. Remember, It was that it's a cover-up, then it was the list doesn't exist. Now they're saying the list does exist and they will produce.
I don't think Coffee is accurate about this. I think Trump saying that he has a list of people that Epstein associated with is very different than them saying that they have a client list of people that Epstein trafficked people to. I think these are two different things, and they're two separate lists. I understand that, like, everybody wants to have answers, but I do think that I think we're making a jump here. And I think that jump is, it's unsubstantiated. That's all. It's just unsubstantiated. I mean, and Coffee could be right, but I don't think that based off of his language, you can draw that conclusion.
So, what names actually they're gonna produce? I think it's anyone's guess. I hope they produce all of them. I'm doubtful. I think there will be some omissions, but it's a credit to all the people who won't stop talking about this that at least there is a change in the approach, and it looks 100%. Like they're gonna have to release some of the files.
We need at least some human sacrifices, okay? At least like 5. Like, I think 5 minimum. Like, really? I mean, are we not even gonna get 5 sacrifices? What a fucking scam. What a fucking scam. It's not fair. Yes, blood for the blood god. Exactly. I'm so mad. And so that's what I think, man. Now I'm questioning his crypto videos. No, Coffee feels very strongly about this. I support him and I agree with him. I understand that there's a lot of people out there that are saying that, and I'll link you guys the video. Make sure to give it a like. I love CoffeeZilla. This is his second channel, so a lot of you guys might not be subscribed to it. Make sure you are. Voidzilla. And so, yeah, I mean, again, stop saying that you're going to get banned. No, I'm only talking about people that I don't like, which is, okay, he ran on this. There has to be sacrifices. There have to be, yes. There have to be. Who is he blackmailing? I'm baffled that so many innocent people in law enforcement can just sit on this information. How does it not weigh on their conscience? I don't know what's happening. And I think that the more people that are implicated, the less I believe a conspiracy. Because I think that, again, like, how many times do you guys know that there's some sort of, rumor going around, and before you know it, everybody knows about it. So I don't necessarily really believe that entirely.
This paper just came out, and this could be the next big breakthrough in AI. They've essentially created a framework for an AI to autonomously design better and better AI models. And apparently, the more compute you add into the system, the more new ideas it can think of. So in theory, if you scale this further, it could lead to a ton of new discoveries beyond our imagination. Now this is quite a technical paper, but in this video, I'm gonna break this down for you into simple terms. We're gonna go over how this works and its incredible results, plus also its limitations. Let's jump right in. Now, before we dive into the meat of the paper, let me first give you a brief background about the state of AI innovation and the issue they're trying to solve. Now, if you've been following my channel, you should know that the progress of AI is not slowing down. We're seeing better and more performant, more efficient AI models almost every week. From the most recent Grok 4 to Kimi K2 to Qwen 3, and perhaps next week GPT-5, these AI language models are getting better and better almost every week. We're also getting better image and voice and video generators. The problem is human researchers can't keep up with this. Here's what they say. The pace of AI research itself remains linearly bounded by human cognitive capacity. This means that humans, with our limited time and mental capacity, are the slow part of the process. This creates an increasingly severe bottleneck for AI advancement. Basically, the pace of AI innovation is held back not by how much compute or GPUs we have, or how much training data we have, but by how much human researchers can actually innovate. All the current models that you have right now, like ChatGPT and Grok and Gemini, these were mostly designed by humans. Now, while we can continue building bigger and better data centers, and that's exactly what XAI and Meta are doing. They're building these huge data centers with hundreds of thousands of GPUs. Now, this could potentially allow us to train bigger models with more parameters, but we can't necessarily come up with smarter designs or architectures. So ultimately, the biggest limitation is not compute, but human brain power and time. We can't innovate fast enough. So hopefully that sets the stage for the problem that they're trying to solve here. In this paper, the researchers basically introduce a system called ASI Arc that can autonomously conduct its own scientific research and design more powerful next generation models. So instead of waiting for humans to innovate, we just let the AI do the innovation all by itself. By the way, you might be wondering, haven't we tried to use AI to automate this design process before? Well, actually, yes, we have. So there's a method called Neural Architecture Search, or NAS for short, and that's been the main method. It's basically an algorithm searching for the best neural network structure to use for a specific task. But the big limitation of NAS is that it's still stuck exploring human-defined techniques. It just tries different combinations of these building blocks that were designed by humans. And these could also be pretty computationally expensive. Basically, this method lacks any real creativity to invent something entirely new on its own. Here's where it gets really interesting. This paper introduces a framework called ASI Arc, and this allows for innovation automated by AI. Specifically, it uses AI to find new neural architectures for AI. It's designed as a fully autonomous system, and in theory, it can do this all by itself without any human intervention. So here's what the framework looks like, and they call this a closed evolutionary loop. So it can repeat again and again as if it keeps evolving. Now, the framework consists of 4 main components, so let's go over each one. First, we have this researcher component. This is like the creative brain of the system. It comes up with brand new ideas for how to design AI models. And these aren't just small tweaks. It's trying to think of fundamentally new ways to build AI. It learns by referencing this cognition base, which we'll talk about in a second. But basically, it's referring to its own past experiments and also by reading and understanding what's out there already. These are basically scientific papers, and this helps it come up with new architectural ideas. Now note that the researcher doesn't just think of ideas, it actually writes out the computer code for these new AI designs, and then it also checks to see if the new idea is truly novel and if the code actually makes sense. So this novelty and validity check helps prevent redundant designs and errors. So it saves a lot of wasted effort. You can kind of think of this as like doing some initial quality control. Now, to get even more specific, to create these new designs, it actually randomly selects from the top 10 best performing architectures. This one will be called the parent architecture. And then it adds ideas from 4 other examples that are from the top 50 ideas. So it's kind of building on success, but also looking at other good ideas. And this process basically loops again and again, so it's like a self-evolving process. In fact, this whole system also loops again and again indefinitely, which we'll talk about in a second. Anyways, after the researcher comes up with a new and valid idea, it then passes this idea over to the engineer. The engineer takes over and actually conducts a real evaluation on that idea. So it trains this new AI model in a real code environment. And what's really innovative here is its self-revision mechanism. So unlike other methods which simply discard ideas that don't really work, this new ASI Arc system actually keeps track of detailed error logs if something goes wrong during training, and then it also tasks the same agent to actually figure out the bug and fix its own mistakes. So it kind of debugs itself, and this prevents promising ideas from being discarded due to simple mistakes. Plus, it also has this automated quality assurance system, which also analyzes the training logs. If a model is training way too slowly, like 2 or 3 times longer than expected, or if the loss looks weirdly low, this might suggest a bug. So it terminates this session early and reports the issue back to the agent for revision. And this accelerates the whole search massively by not wasting any compute if it hits a dead end. This whole self-correction part is a key to the success of the system. Alright, so in a nutshell, the engineer basically tests out this idea in a real coding environment. Next, you might be wondering, well, how does it decide what's actually good? In other words, how does it pick the winning ideas? This is a bit more complex than just looking at the ones with the best benchmark scores. So instead, they use this fitness score, which is basically a score that blends both quantitative and qualitative measures. Here are the important parts you need to know. For the quantitative part, it uses a clever sigmoid transformation, which basically gives more importance to small but significant improvements, but it also caps extreme values. And this step helps prevent the AI from reward hacking. In other words, just chasing one metric and kind of gaming the system. As for the qualitative part, they use a separate LLM, which acts like an expert evaluator. So this is the LLM judge that you see over here. It looks at things like performance, design complexity, speed, and how new the ideas are compared to previous models. And after blending both of these qualitative and quantitative metrics together, it spits out a fitness score which tells it how good this idea is. And then this score is sent over to this analyst component for review. So this analyst module basically gathers existing information from this cognition base, and it also synthesizes its own experimental results, including the fitness score and the performance metrics and the training logs. First, in terms of gathering existing knowledge, it pulls from this cognition base, which basically looks at existing human knowledge. It extracts things like concepts, algorithms, and historical context from nearly 100 important scientific papers from all these different archives. And of course, it also generates insights from the current experiment performance, including the training logs. It also looks at the parent and sibling designs, in other words, other similar ideas that this system has come up with in this family tree, which we'll go over in a second. Basically, it's also comparing closely related designs, and this helps it understand why certain changes work or don't work. So it's pulling from human wisdom, but also learning from its own direct experience through its experiments. And then the insights from this analyst component are then archived into its central database. So it's like basically updating its memory. And this is used to inform the next design cycle of the researcher. And so this loops on and on again, depending on, how much compute you want to pump into it. Overall, this is a really sophisticated feedback loop. Now, all of this sounds incredibly compute intensive, all this exploring and testing. It can't just brute force thousands of huge models, right? Like each idea of a model needs to go through some rigorous testing, and this is going to take up a ton of compute. So here's one more detail about the system to mention. They also use this really smart two-stage exploration then verification strategy. So first is the exploration stage, where it uses smaller models like around 20 million parameters that are trained on less data. And it uses a limited number of validation samples as well. So these are basically quick and dirty tests to find promising ideas. The goal is to quickly identify a large pool of promising candidates without burning a ton of compute. And then only the top performers from that stage move on to the verification phase. And here they get scaled up to become larger models, and then they go through extensive training and rigorous testing with much bigger datasets. So think of this whole process as like broad search first and then deep focused validation. If you've been following my channel, you'll know that I'm obsessed with finding the best AI video generators. And right
We did a video on this 6 months ago, a year ago. I forgot when exactly we did it. But dude, you remember this like viral clip because it was Horizon Zero Dawn. Okay, Horizon Zero Dawn. We all recognize it, Aloy and everything. And then there was news of an upcoming Tencent game called Lights of Moritari. I forgot. And dude, it was just straight up Horizon, like 1-to-1, like hilariously so. Like it was a carbon copy. And they had these, more trailers that looked identical. They had, come on, dude. Come on. You know what you're doing. Come on. There's no oops. There's no oopsie, we made a mistake. I mean, come on, dude. This is like hilariously on the nose, okay? Everybody knows what you're doing. You know, the trailer, even down to the grass, like the red grass, identical across the board. But this is what the trailer looked like. Very Horizon-esque, right? Even some of these snippets in engine and in game, it looked very Horizon-like. The actual game is like a survival game. Like it's closer to Pal World than it is to Horizon, okay? Like it actually is not very much like Horizon in terms of actual gameplay. We saw an extended gameplay cut and it did not look anywhere near this good even. It looked really, really rough and really bad. But why am I bringing this up? Well, it's being reported by Reuters now that Sony is suing Tencent for this offense. Okay? They are, dude, these ads are so bad. A spokesperson for Tencent and the attorneys for Sony did not immediately respond to comment. They released Horizon, blah, 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 blah. But basically they are suing them specifically in California federal court, accusing the Chinese tech conglomerate of ripping off its popular Horizon series adventure games. Sony said in a lawsuit filed Friday that Tencent's upcoming Light of Motorum is a slavish clone of its games that copies several distinct Horizon elements and threatens to confuse buyers, which leads to potential lost revenue. Jesus, these ads are ridiculous. And honestly, yeah, fair. I think there's a case. Sony better watch out or Tencent will buy them. Dude, I think there's a real case here. The thing is, you know, it passes the gut check for sure, which is the initial thing. But these cases always take time to be established and to come to fruition, because usually what the lawyers are doing is they're trying to establish, first of all, engagement on Light of Motorum, I don't know. They're trying to establish interest so that then they can take that and extrapolate potential lost sales, because their case is basically going to be people will spend money on this game thinking it's Horizon because it looks so freaking similar. Like hilariously similar. And so by making it look so similar, they're going to confuse buyers and lead to people spending money on this when they meant to spend money on Horizon. Now, for you and I, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this is not Horizon, that this is like a visual ripoff. Even if it's a unique game, it's visually clear what they're doing. But to a more casual gamer, I could see them getting confused by this and thinking that this is a Sony game because it looks so much like that thing they've seen trailers for and commercials for. And so they're going to run with that. Realistically, what happens? Maybe they do major like art direction overhauls. Maybe they do something like that. I don't know. Maybe they just settle and give Sony a big chunk of change and then still put this out as it is. I kind of doubt that. I think they would require some sort of visual distinction, because you got to remember, Sony is in business with Tencent in various ways. One example is with the parent company of From Software, Kadokawa, I'm not sure. They are invested pretty heavily in Kadokawa, specifically with regard to From Software, where they bought a chunk of them, and Tencent has also bought a big chunk of them as well. As you can see here, they announced a strategic capital and business alliance with them, under which it acquired 12 million shares for roughly $300 million on January 7th, giving Sony a 10% stake and making them the largest single shareholder. Tencent's also been invested in them as well. So they work together and they have connections together in certain business ventures. But I mean, this was so egregious that I'm not surprised they finally took matters into their own hands and are trying to take action. Because I think, I think there's pretty clearly a case. They could let them launch it and then file the lawsuit and claim damages. You know, we are owed a chunk of every copy you sold or something like that. But I don't know exactly what their tact is here, but I mean, it's pretty clear what's happening here, and that there almost certainly is a case. I mean, come on, dude. But this is the game. Like, it's a survival game. It doesn't play anything like Horizon, which is probably their primary defense, is that it looks damn near identical, but it doesn't play identically at all, except for maybe, you know, some of these larger boss fights and stuff. But beyond that, like, the core gameplay loop is going to be totally different. So we'll see what happens. But they're actually filing a lawsuit and trying to get the ball rolling on it, and we'll see what happens with it. Because as far as I know, we don't have even an estimated timeline of when this would see the light of day. But I mean, again, they knew what they were doing. There is no way this happens and they're like, oh no, it looks similar to Horizon. Aw, man. Like, there's no shot. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing from the outset. Even the font is the same, okay? Like, they knew what they were doing. It's just they were kind of testing Sony to see if they could get away with it, and it looks like they can't. Maybe this is some big, like, 4D chess, big brain thing, and they're doing this because they actually want, I don't know, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to bait Sony into a lawsuit. I don't know, but it's crazy. It's crazy. This is like when you tell a friend, tell a joke to a friend, and they rip you off and tell it to a larger group as their own. I mean, what's crazy is that they almost certainly would make millions upon millions upon millions of dollars on that Lights of Materium game, because it's Tencent and they're massive and huge in China and Eastern markets. So they almost certainly would find amazing success with it. And it's so on the nose. It makes me wonder if this is some sort of 4D chess thing where they're like, hey, we want to bait Sony into a lawsuit so we can get discovery against them and we can use that information in another venture we're doing. Because it's so on the nose. Like, there's no way they did that and honestly thought they wouldn't be sued. You know? So I'm like, there's got to be some other angle to it. It just doesn't make sense how that could happen. And then they honestly have no idea that it's going to go over that way. But apparently, look at how big Pal World is. People love their slop. And they love tedium, or they love games that they can kind of turn their brain off and go through the tedium in a way that's kind of, satisfying. Pal World's satisfying because you can build a big base and then you can increase your collection of pals or whatever, and you can have fun with it. I kind of fell off after, I don't remember, 15, 20 hours or something. But Nikki, she put in a lot of hours. She played a lot of Pal World. Yeah, a lot. Can you sue for something that's not for sale yet? I can draw as much Horizon inspired art as I like as long as I don't sell it. The point is, with this, they're going to sell it. They've made it pretty clear they're going to. It's kind of the whole point of them announcing it. So I'm sure PlayStation's ultimate goal would be to just get them to cancel it and not sell it. So you can do your inspired art as long as you're not selling it, yeah. But if you announced intention to sell it, then they might come at you and be like, hey, no, you can't do that. You keep drawing, keep doing whatever art you want to do, but you can't sell it. In which case you'd probably go, okay, I won't sell it. But that's what this lawsuit's going to try to push them into doing, is just being like, nope. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
Well, unfortunately, it finally happened. That dreaded time is upon us. The Armageddon the Bible warned us about. The oversaturation of my favorite video game genre, Souls-like. There are too many Souls-like games. There are so many Souls, I bet even Shang Tsung would want to retire. Every week, there is a new Souls-like game dropping or being announced. It is preposterous. This genre has become the hero shooter of the 2020s. Even the word Souls-like has been boiled, broiled, and sautéed to the point where it becomes meaningless, where every studio now says that they borrow elements from it. It's become just an absolute meaningless buzzword in a lot of cases. For some games that aren't even Souls-like, they'll still use the term to describe certain mechanics. Like if you happen to use the right bumper for an attack or something, they're like, oh, we took inspiration from Dark Souls for this one. Meanwhile, you're using right bumper to, like, change your fucking gun or something. It's just, that word, and the genre as a whole, has become so diluted. And the fatigue is really setting in. A lot of people are now yawning and rolling their eyes during every conference that shows a game that even remotely resembles something Souls adjacent. And I hate to see that, because that used to be the most hype reveal. But I looked up how many Souls-like games have come out this year already, and it's 7, which means there's at least been one a month, and they're pretty big budget ones for the most part. Now, not all of them are standalone games. That it does include, like, Lies of P's DLC, which was an absolute slapper. And obviously that does include Elden Ring Night Rain. And the point I'm making isn't even to say that all of the Souls games that are coming out now are like bad or anything. In fact, I'd still argue the majority of them are pretty good. But there are some that it's very clear companies are just rushing the shit out, striking while the iron is hot. And it's getting lazier for some of them. And I hate to see that, because these games are very special to me. Now, I want this to be not just a rant about the state of this genre, but I also want to just review the most recent one I played, which is Wuchang Fallen Feathers. I finished it last night. It was a pretty meaty game. It took me over 16 hours. The full edited playthrough is on my gaming channel, Moist Critical Gaming, if you want to see it. And I know me mentioning that I want to review this on the back of this rant about how oversaturated the genre has come immediately plants the idea in your noggin that I fucking hated Wuchang. But that's not true. I didn't dislike this game or anything. I didn't think it was bad. But I do think Wuchang is a great example for studios just wanting a Souls game out there without really delivering anything new to the genre at all. So it just feels very generic, and thus feels pretty stale. This game has gotten a lot of criticism because of its absolutely abominable PC launch. It was so bad, in fact, that for the first time in who knows how many years, I actually decided not to get the PC version of a game and instead got it on console. So I got this on PlayStation 5 and I had no performance issues at all, but pretty much across the board, everyone was reporting that this game was irredeemable dog shit when it comes to performance on PC. Like, it just wouldn't even work. It was like the fucking McDonald's ice cream machine of video games. And they also made an apology recognizing how horrible the launch was for PC and how inexcusable it was, so it's good they're at least recognizing that, but it should have never shipped in that state in the first place. This is a topic I can yap about till the cows come home. It is shocking that we still get so many majorly broken PC releases for video games where they ship in pretty much unplayable states sometimes. Like, that's almost just a scam. Like, you are paying for a product that can't even run on PC. It's so weird how that is still so common. But they're doing their best to update it and fix it. They've been rolling out patches, which some people are reporting are helping. So, I mean, they're chipping away at it, but that has been a huge hurdle for this game. But for me, since I played it on console, I didn't have those issues. So let's dive into the actual spaghetti and the meatballs of the game. I want to start with some of the positive things here, so that way I'm not just negative Nancy off rip. One thing this game put a big emphasis on that I wasn't expecting was story. There are NPCs out the wazoo here, and all of them have a lot of exposition and give you a lot of lore. They did a lot to carve out a world here that I do think was pretty fresh. I thought the story was good, I enjoyed the narrative, and I appreciated that. There's a lot of quest lines as well. Granted, I can't believe I'm immediately going to attach a hemorrhoid onto this. But granted, a lot of those quest lines you follow don't really give you any reward worthy of the time you put into it. You don't really get anything for doing a lot of the side activities other than maybe at best another charge on your healing flask. In this game, it's the mana vase. That is like the best possible reward you get for the side content, which is just a little underwhelming. Yeah, it's a good reward because it's really helpful to have another charge, but you went through a lot of effort. You'd kind of want something more exciting, like a new weapon or something, but you don't usually get that through doing one of the quest lines. They save for like 3 or so big side quest lines that are easily missable. In fact, one of them I fucked up. But point is, it is cool how much story there is. I just do wish the rewards were a little better for doing so much out of your way for some of the side content. But I thought that was cool. I think the gameplay is very smooth. I think it is pretty silky across the board. I think a lot of the abilities, like the disciplines is what they're called in this game, are flashy and fun. It feels responsive. It feels good. I was going to, once again, put a little blemish there with a little asterisk with something, but I'm going to refrain. I'll get into some of the gameplay complaints here in a little bit. But again, overall, I do think there were a lot of fun ways of playing with the disciplines, and since you can seamlessly go from one weapon to the other, through having a Skyborn Might, which is something you charge up through various different means, you can then switch from one weapon to the other while also using a skill. It makes it flashy, fun, and smooth. It's cool. There's a lot of room to play there and get very creative in combos. Another thing I liked about the game is its skill tree. Granted, a lot of the things on the skill tree are just like +1 to endurance, +1 to strength, that kind of thing. there are some certain nodes in the skill tree that do change the way your build will function, such as giving it the ability to deflect on the third hit of a light attack string. Deflecting in this, or clashing, excuse me, not deflecting. Clashing is when, like, you attack during one of their attacks, or they attack you during one of your attacks, and then they will hit each other, and it is a really good tool to allow you to continue pushing through that without taking tons of damage, and it can change the way that you approach a build. And it is free to respec those points, which is very nice. So you get to try a lot of different things, and it makes it fresh. So you're never locked into one build, and the respecs aren't a resource, so you can freely change things in and out. Very similar to the way Black Myth Wukong did it, which is something I really appreciate. Another great thing about this game is how much meat is on its bones. It is a long game. Like, it took me a pretty girthy chunk of time here to get through it, and I missed a boss, unfortunately. I usually like to do 100% bosses when I play a Souls game. This time I accidentally missed one through flubbing one of the quest lines. I made a big boo-boo by exploring too much and bricking my quest line, which locked me out of a boss that I really wanted to fight. So yeah, there is a lot of content here. There is a lot of exploring here. It's exploring with a capital E. This is, I would say, comfortably the most densely packed levels in the genre. And I actually mean that as more of a negative thing than a good thing. I think there's a lot of people that praise that. For me, I didn't like that. And okay, I've given you a lot of positives. Now we're going to mix and match positives and negatives. The levels in this game, I really think, are just so counterintuitive. There's no, like, flow to them. It's just all haphazardly branching paths. So, in pretty much every single map, you will reach a fork in the road. And regardless of where you go, that fork will reach a fork. And then you'll follow one path there, and that fork will reach a fork. And that fork will reach a ladder. And that ladder will wrap around to one of the previous forks, where then maybe you end up going down the other side of it, and you'll find another ladder which will wrap back around to a fork, or maybe it'll go somewhere else for another branching path. Like, there's no fluidity to its level design. It didn't feel fun exploring. It felt like a fucking headache and a chore. And since I did end up getting just sucked into exploring so many things just because I was so curious what reward might be there, it just leads to the most, like, nauseating traversal. And the worst part is when you do that level of exploring, you don't really get any good rewards. Like, I did get lucky a few times where the reward was like a new weapon, but the weapons you get from it, like, most of them were pretty bad. Like, they weren't great weapons, unfortunately, and you were lucky to get that. A lot of the exploring just leads to dead ends where you might get, like, one thing that'll let you pop it for more mercury, which is this game's version of Souls. And that's it. Or, like, you'll get some purple moss so you can cure corruption. It never felt rewarding to explore at all. Like, I love the idea of having maps like this where there is so much there. Like a soup with so many chunks for you to chew on. But it's like empty, it's like styrofoam chunks. Like, you don't get anything out of doing that. And it just kind of sucks to chew through. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. And it sucks because I do think there was a lot of potential there. Like, I think the maps look really nice. Like, I think every level is visually beautiful. I think the whole game itself is pretty gorgeous to look at. I think there's a lot of people that were really trying to find everything to hate about this game for some reason. So people were criticizing it for looking too similar to things like Black Myth Wukong or Wulong Fallen Dynasty. And I can get that argument kind of, but it doesn't bother me. Like, I still think they did a good job of carving their own identity in the visuals department, especially when it came to, like, their bosses and even some of the enemy designs. So that didn't bother me. It's just, I hated the way the maps were laid out. And another thing they did with each map here, like all of the levels, is the way they would make it, like, difficult is they would just add tons and tons of, like, random traps and statuses out the wazoo. So there'd be, like, corruption fart fumes that you'd have to, like, wander through, and you'd need to put on armor that's really resistant to corruption so you don't get corrupted on the way through and then need to pop the purple moss. Or there'd be, like, blight containers where if you hit them too hard, or if you, like, run through them or dash through them, it'll shoot blight balls at you, which half your health temporarily. Like, just so many statuses that make it annoying to get through as opposed to, like, hard or fun. Like, it's not hard to do that, it's just tedious. And something that also made it even more tedious was this game's baffling decision to have such a shortage of shrines. Shrines being the bonfires of this game. The shrines are placed really, really far apart. And there are shortcuts, like there's no, like, you know, sacrifice of shortcuts. There are quite a handful of them, but they don't make it that much faster. So another big problem people talk about in this game is the runbacks. Like if you die to a boss, most of the time it's going to be a long run to get back to that boss. So you better pray that you get it first try, because you are not going to like the run back if you keep dying. They were not very generous with the shrines, and again, that doesn't do anything to make the game harder, it just makes it more tedious. That's like a very arbitrary way of making the game appear more challenging or punishing than it is. That's just annoying. And that was a bit of a headache. And overall, I would say this game is more on the easier side in the genre, which by no means is a bad thing. I think that's totally fine. It's just their way of making things harder was just by making them more annoying, as opposed to like better mechanics or making them, you know, more challenging mechanics. It just made them slower and tedious ones. Now, I want to talk about the combat again, because like I said, it is fun. I do like the combat mechanics here. But there is nothing new in it. It's like exactly what you're used to in the genre. It doesn't try to do anything super different. Now, I don't think it's a requirement to do that or anything if you're making a game in the genre. Like, there's nothing wrong with just doing what all the other games are that came before you, but doing it really well. You don't need to put your own quirky, unique spin on it. You don't have to reinvent the fucking wheel. That's not what I'm saying. But this game is so content to just be, you know, serviceable. It doesn't go above being, like, good. It doesn't try and be great or anything. It's just good enough. It's what you expect, and it delivers what you expect. And I guess at this point, with how many fucking Souls games I've played, I just appreciate if it did try and go beyond that and be great and, you know, want to do something more special. Now, the game has a few weapon types. It has long sword, dual blades, one-handed sword, spear, and axe. And there's not a ton of weapons in this game for each of those categories, which didn't really bother me because I ended up mainly just using Lashing Whip. The versatility in this game doesn't even really come from its weapons so much. It mainly comes from like the discipline skills plus whatever skill, whatever weapon you choose comes with. That's mainly where it comes from. So for me, the Lashing Whip made my attacks have longer range, and I have like the dance where it hits a lot and it's long range. It felt really strong. So I didn't mind any of that. There's also spells in this game. There's a big emphasis on spells, actually. You get a lot of them. And I can't really opine on that because I don't do any spell casting in Souls games. It's just not how I like to play them. It's not my cup of tea. So I don't really have a lot of say in how the spells feel in this game. I used a lot of them just to see it because they were very flashy and cool, and I have no doubt you can make a really fun, strong build with them. It's just not typically how I like to approach games in this genre. So don't have a lot to say there, but they did seem very cool with a lot of potential. Overall, I felt the combat was fun, albeit very by the numbers, like what you expect without going above and beyond by any means, but it was still good, and I had fun with it. But this is by far my biggest complaint in this entire game. They made a decision when it comes to the combat that I think really fucking sucks, and it's how they handle knockdown. Every boss and tons of enemies have multiple moves and ways of knocking you down, which in Souls games is always like tough because once you get knocked down, it throws off your rhythm and you can get punished. Like it is always rough. But in other games in this genre, you have ways of combating that. Like there are some iframes like when you roll out of it, or there are perks where you can do like a quick roll out of a knockdown. In this game, there is none of that. If you get knocked down, you will pretty much die in like every case unless you're really tanky or if the boss or enemy decides not to keep attacking. When you get knocked down, there is no quick get up. If you are spamming roll to get up, you are still going to get up at a pretty slow pace, and regardless of where you like roll in what direction, you will still get hit. There are no iframes on it, and it'll typically lead to a knockdown chain. So you'll get knocked down once and you'll try and like roll out of it real quick so you can get back on your feet and fight. But what'll happen is the boss is still going in like a string, or maybe it starts a new string and it'll knock you down again, and then you're going to eat another attack when you try and get up, rinse and repeat till you die, and usually it's like 3 or 4 hits for that. Or if you don't get knocked down again, you'll just eat a huge hit when you get up and you get punished. You can't really avoid damage once you get knocked down. And if you try and like wait it out, like where you lay on the ground instead of try and like roll out of it and you try and slow get up, obviously you're gonna eat a fucking wallop there too. Because you're not like invincible when you're getting up or anything like that. So if you try and like wait out a chain or something, you'll just eat attacks while you're still fucking snoring down there, you know, still sleeping. There are no really good options of combating knockdown in this game other than just don't get hit. Like, that's really it. So when you're fighting a boss, you could be doing it perfectly, but if you get knocked down once, that's basically curtains. And I really didn't like that. That doesn't feel punishing per se. Like, it is. Like, that is punishing, but in a way that doesn't feel fair. Because it's not like other games in the genre do it like that. Usually if you get knocked down, you do have ways of saving that and like not losing your run for it. Like, there are ways that you can be skillful about solving that problem as opposed to just not ending up in that position in the first place. And I don't like that approach of like, well, it just shouldn't have got knocked down. You should have known you'd die the second you got knocked down because now you're out of options. That's checkmate. That was so infuriating. Like I said, the game is on the easier side, but the way they try and make it harder is through things like that. And I think that sucks. Something a lot of other people complained about, and I did too for a little while, but it grew on me, is how much the bosses move. So in this game, I think the bosses are really cool and very flashy, and I think they look really nice, and some of them have very fun attacks and like very good patterns to learn that make it really feel super cool. But every boss in this game is constantly moving and spamming. There are a lot of bosses that will just spam combos or spam spells endlessly while also spamming iframes. So they're moving around the arena, they're jumping around you, they're teleporting away constantly. So it makes it very hard for you to get a big punish in. It makes it hard for you to get like a charged heavy on like a back shot or anything like that. And a lot of people were noting that that was frustrating. And for me it was too sometimes, but it's one of those things where towards the end of the game I kind of figured out how to fight back against like the constant iframe spam and dodging and moving around. So it didn't bother me that much towards the end, but in the beginning, yeah, it was kind of annoying. But I don't think that's the biggest deal in the world. Though I will agree with the take that because the bosses are always moving, it does nullify some builds. Like, it does make them just not viable, such as some things that you might want to try with the axe, because it is kind of slow, and you can still make it work if you're like really tight with it, but because they are always moving, you might not get your whole string off, or you might not get to activate everything you want to with your skills in order to get your build going and cooking and doing damage on the boss, because they are moving so much. So you need to be able to strike faster. You need to be able to do something to catch up to them to start attacking. So I understand why some people and their builds find it to be like really, really annoying. Anyway, overall, I think Wuchang is a solid game. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I had fun playing it. Though it is a very average, middle-of-the-road Souls game. It doesn't try and do anything big or new or innovative or special. It is content just being serviceable. And for some people, that's fine, and I will say for its price tag, I think that is also a big, like, point in their favor. Like, that was a good move. It's not a $70 game. That's a really good decision. So, for the $50 price tag, you do get a lot of content, and you get a fine Souls game. So you get a cheaper price tag for a still good Souls game. I think that's, hey, that's a solid deal right there. That's not bad at all. But if you get it on PC, you might not be able to play it at all, apparently. Which I think is a huge problem. Games should not be able to be shipped in that state and sold. But I've yapped about that a lot. I won't go down that path again. Again, I played it on console, so I didn't have those issues. Anyway, though, overall, like I said, Wuchang is good. But it's not great, it's not amazing or anything. It's fine. It is a good Souls game for a very decent price that I think was a good decision from them. Anyway, that's it. See ya.
The government has no plans to repeal the Online Safety Act and is working closely with Ofcom to implement the act as quickly and effectively as possible to enable UK users to benefit from its protections. This video is going to be a complete and utter rant, but I am sick of this. I am fed up. So to rewind a little bit, the UK government has implemented these new rules that mean that if you were to access any website that maybe possibly perhaps contains any adult content whatsoever, you have to provide a form of identity identification. Now, this form of identification could be something like a driving license, a passport, or even a face scan. And many people have come out, in fact 360,000 people have come out and voiced their concerns with this being a regulation, because this has been done in the guise of protecting children online, when the actual reality of the situation is that it's being used to farm data, to collect information from the British public, and we have no say in how the information is used. Also, a lot of this information is being collected by private companies that have previously been subjected to being hacked. Now, if we really want to protect children online, the first thing we do is just get the app for our home internet provider. For me, EE, just log into that app and just turn on parental settings, and then go onto your kid's phone, turn on parental settings, and Bob's your uncle, Deborah's your aunt, and your kid cannot access adult content on the internet. Sorted, problem solved. We could maybe even implement laws where parents have to have on parental guidance in their home if their children are under the age of 18. I think having laws that prevent children under the age of 18 for accessing this sort of content is probably something that a lot of people wouldn't find controversial. But having everyone submit their personal identification online was absolutely insane. And most people with a functioning cognitive brain realize this too. So we have the online petition. Now, the online petition, like I said actually in the video that came out earlier today, could be really useful, but I believe it's for the most part probably pointless. And to be fair, I got a bit of backlash for saying that, but I rest my case. The UK government have just responded to the petition. Now, surprisingly, the government responded in a very, very fast manner. Usually it takes them about a week and a half to respond to these petitions, and normally these petitions don't even reach 100,000 signatures before the government issues a response. In this instance, we've gone over 3.5 times the minimum requirement for this topic to get discussed in Parliament, and in this instance the government have totally shat all over the British public, and this is the government's response. I would like to thank those who signed the petition. It is right that the regulatory regime for in-scope online services takes a proportionate approach, balancing the protection of users from online harm with the ability for low-risk services to operate effectively and provide benefits to users. Well, a proportionate response would be enforcing something where ISPs and parents have to protect their children with online parental guidance on their internet service providers' boxes or on the child's actual device itself, not mass surveillance. The government has no plans to repeal the Online Safety Act and is working closely with Ofcom to implement the act as quickly and effectively as possible to enable UK users to benefit from its protections. Enjoy your benefits, guys. Proportionality is a core principle of the Act and is built into its duties. As a regulator for the online safety regime, there's definitely another regime going on, Ofcom must consider the size and risk level of different types and kinds of services when recommending steps providers can take to comply with requirements. Duties in the Communications Act 2003 require Ofcom to act with proportionality and to target action only where it's needed. The entire UK population? Proportionality? What? Some duties apply to all user-to-user search services in the scope of the Act. This includes risk assessments, including determining if children are likely to access the service, and if so, assessing the risk of harm to children. Whilst many services carry low risks of harm, the risk of assessment duties are key to ensuring that risky services of all sizes do not slip through the net of regulation. That is such a dystopian sentence. I hate the word risky services because that is totally up to complete subjectivity. What is a risky service? For example, the government is very concerned about the small platforms that host harmful content, such as forums dedicated to and encouraging suicide or self-harm. What? That sort of content is already illegal. That doesn't mean that every single person in the UK needs to submit their passport to use the internet or use any site where there could possibly be some adult content. It's absurd. Exempting small services from the Act would mean that the services like these forums would not be subject to the Act's enforcement powers. No one's asking them to exempt small services from the Act. That's not what the petition's for. Even forums that might seem harmless carry potential risks, such as where adults come into contact with child users. Okay, give us some examples, explain what the core issue is there, and then find a way to resolve it. Once again, the biggest place and the biggest issue I've heard with stuff like that happening are games like Roblox, a game which is designed primarily for children and adults shouldn't be using. The problem there isn't the children using it, it's the adults using it. And more to the point, you don't need your passport to play Roblox. So that's not fixing that problem. That's not fixing an issue. Once providers have carried out their duties to conduct risk assessments, they must protect the users of their service from the identified risks of harm. While there is one identified risk of harm, private companies holding millions of people's copies of their passports, driving license and biometric data, which then can be hacked, sold, or utilized in nefarious means. But hey, what do I know? Just a YouTuber. Ofcom's illegal content codes of practice sets out recommended measures to help providers comply with these obligations, measures that are tailored in relation to both size and risk. If a provider's risk assessment accurately determines that the risk faced by users are low across all harms, Ofcom's codes specify that they only need some basic measures, including easy to find and understandable terms and conditions, which is a legal requirement in the UK already, a complaints tool that allows users to report illegal material when they see it, backed up by a process to deal with those complaints. Okay, that's fine. Still not seeing the requirement for a passport. The ability to review content and take it down if it's illegal or breaches their terms of service. Well, every platform so far that's asked me for ID already has that. A specific individual responsible for compliance who Ofcom can contact if needed. Most businesses that they're targeting already have that. That's the end of their criteria. So there's already laws, regulation, and compliance standards that fall into all of those categories. This act doesn't help with the introduction of these things. This act does nothing for those things. Where a children's access assessment indicates a platform is likely to be accessed by children, a subsequent risk assessment must be conducted to identify measures for mitigating risks. Okay, so why is this not on every single application that children are using today? Why is this not on Roblox? Why is this not on mobile kids games? Why is it not in all these other places? If the objective here is to identify adults being in places that they shouldn't be, that's great. Implement it in places where adults usually gravitate towards, for example, in places that they shouldn't be. Don't apply it to the whole internet. For example, highly effective age assurance is recommended for the services likely accessed by children that do not already prohibit and remove harmful content, such as pornography and promotion. To be fair, and maybe I'm just too innocent, but I've not come across any websites that have been indexed by Google that are encouraging the promotion of people ending their life. And if those websites do exist, I'm 99.999% sure they're illegal anyway. You'll have to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. On the 8th of July, Ofcom CEO wrote to the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, noting Ofcom's responsibility for regulating a wide range of highly diverse services, including those run by businesses, but also charities, community and voluntary groups. Individuals and many services have not been regulated before. The letter notes that the Act's aim is to not penalise small, low-risk services trying to comply in good faith. Ofcom and the government recognise that many small services are dynamic small businesses. What? So the rest of this goes on about how this affects small businesses. This is not why people are signing it. This isn't just being applied to small businesses. This is being applied to every single resident of the UK that tries to access anything online that is a place where adult content may exist in some capacity. An issue that can be fully, completely, and entirely resolved just by implementing safety guidelines through the app that's already on our phone for our home internet routers and going onto your child's phone and turning on parental controls. That will fix like 95 to 99% of the issue. The government will continue to work with Ofcom towards the full implementation of the Online Safety Act 2023, including monitoring proportionate implementation. Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. What they should really say is Department for Surveillance, Interrogation and Tyranny. Honestly, I cannot begin to explain how frustrated and how angry I am about this. The whole point of the Parliament website is that when something gets to 100,000 signatures, it's clearly a big enough thing in the UK that people care enough about for it to be considered for a debate in Parliament. But the operative word there is consider. Considering this for a debate is not good enough. This needs to be debated, and it doesn't need to be debated in a room full of people that already voted for it. The British public need to stand up against this, because as we've just seen from everything we've just read, the guise of this being used to protect children falls apart immediately when you actually suggest things that would indeed protect children. I know I've said this twice in this video and I've covered it in previous videos, but the way to protect children online is so much easier than what they're trying to implement, and everything they've just gone through in their response is nothing to do with the protection of children. There's a couple of references in there to it, but the main thing is about how they're trying to help small businesses implement this regulation and to stop children seeing content such as like self-harm stuff. And there's already laws that prevent this, and it gets to the point where yes, they could implement all sorts of laws. They can entirely ban the internet and prevent this issue in its entirety, but there is such thing as too far. And the idea that we have to trust millions of private companies with a copy of our face scan, a video of ourselves, our driving license, or even our passport in some instances, that's not the answer. I am beyond words. I'm beyond words. The only thing I can say is everyone keep signing this petition. Keep signing the petition because at least the government has responded. I don't think it's going to do anything. There's not really much else we can do other than create noise. We need to create noise because this needs to be addressed. This is absolutely diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. If you want to get around the Online Safety Act and you are of age to be accessing the content in its entirety, according to our UK government, you can use the link down below for private internet access. If you use that link and get a VPN through private internet access, the channel gets a small commission, and I've been using it now for just over a year and I've loved every second of it. You'll get 2 months free and you'll save yourself 83% off. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.
Who looks at all the backlash the UK is getting for basically the same thing and decides now is the ample time to try this bill again. Charlie made a video on it, did he? Let me see if I can watch it.
If I asked you to give me your ID to watch this video, provide some form of identification, what would you tell me?
No.
I hope your answer would be a resounding no, telling me to go eat dirt. Because that's not just like some kind of innocent, annoying question. That's legitimately just an assault on your freedom. It's an extremely scary and concerning direction the online space is heading. No longer is this just the wacky Wild West of the World Wide Web where Timmy Turner once surfed on an email and Fairly Odd Parents. Now,
it's a different time.
It is actively being
World's
censored.
Different.
We're seeing that happen a lot. Censorship is spiraling, especially in video games, with Collective Shout getting Steam and itch.
It's going to get a lot worse. It is. It's going to get a lot worse, especially whenever people like this realize they can make a change.
Two separate platforms to remove hundreds and hundreds of games that they deemed highly harmful and, you know, deplorable. So they had the Visa and MasterCard come forward, threaten to pull out of them and bully them into submission. They got them in the fucking headlock. So then they just went belly up and played ball, removing all of these titles, which, by the way, was not just freaky gooner games. In itch.io's case, people have learned over the last few days, tons and tons of games have been de-indexed that didn't have...
Well, it creates a chilling effect. And this is the problem, is that as soon as companies realize and these platforms realize that they could lose their payment processing opportunities, they will be overzealous in removing games ahead of time so they don't accidentally get in trouble. And that's really what the problem is.
Any porn in them at all. So it wasn't just like rape and incest weirdo games. It was any game or mini games included that are just darker themes that have more like
and then also, like, here's the other component to it that I don't think anybody's talking about, is that who's to what maybe Collective Shout isn't going after all NSFW games, and they don't want all porn games banned. They only want the ones banned that are negative or detrimental to women from their point of view. But what happens whenever another advocacy group that's like Collective Shout wants all of them banned? And then they email MasterCard, and then the same thing happens then. You see what I'm saying? So, like, even if you solve this problem and you address this one specifically, if it happens once, it'll happen again. They defended cuties? Yeah, of course. I saw that. It's the same argument against more internet regulation. Well, I don't know necessarily if it is. I think it depends on what it is. But I think that government behavior and private company behavior shouldn't be graded on the same scale. You can't really make a one-to-one comparison in a lot of cases.
Themes in them with no, like, sexual content. It's absurd, and it's something everyone could have seen coming. Anyone with a functioning frontal lobe could tell you that censorship is not something to be celebrated.
No.
When you try and target low-hanging fruit, something easy like
and I think also, like, censorship in some cases are things like we all agree with, right? Like, you know, like CSAM, like any like child sexual abuse stuff, like, yeah, get rid of that, censor that, get rid of, you know, doxing, stuff like that, censor that for sure. But the problem is that this is the real issue. It's that these people want to make their opinions the law. And they don't want to change the law. They want to have their opinions, enforce them as if they are the law, but not actually pass a law. That's the issue. And that's what they're doing.
You know, disgusting porn games that are all about, like, incest and shit. you'll get a lot of clapping seals like, yippee, you saved us. But what they don't realize is that it doesn't stop there. That is just the beginning. That just opens the door. So that way they can censor even more. It is absurd and out of control, but I'm going off on a tangent. The point is, the internet is under attack in a large way across the board, not just in gaming. I'm sure all of you have seen what's happening in the UK right now with their Online Safety Act, where now to access a myriad of content, you need to provide your identification.
Wow.
That's not acceptable. Just like we were all taught growing up, never take candy from a stranger, don't talk to strangers, say no to that kind of shit. You should also be taught to say no to this too. You should not be providing your ID willy-nilly online. That is not something...
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too. And also, like, the way that they need to do it, if they want to do this, this has to be like a government check system that is done by a encrypted government third party. So you don't have something like the TAP leak happen. That's the big issue. Is that, like, and also other countries have done this. Like, for example, China does this. I don't think that's a great example of, like, how we should do things, but they're able to do it. And also, South Korea does it. South Korea does the same thing. So it's not like this is some impossible thing that they can't figure out. It's that I don't want an individual company doing this. If you want to make an ID system, it has to be a universal government ID system that has accountability to the public. You can't just have all these random companies asking you for your driver's license constantly.
Something that should just be you know, loosey-goosey, no care in the world. Oh, here's all my personal identification. Here, yeah, take it. That way I can access fucking Wikipedia. By the way, Wikipedia is actually affected by this. Now, in some cases, it's not providing an ID. It's instead providing your face. It will scan your face, so you're giving them your biometric data in that case. Again, big time no-no.
Yeah, again, I have no problem doing this when I'm signing up for a driver's license or I'm signing up for something like that. But I do have a big problem doing this when I'm signing up for a social media website and I'm giving it to the social media website directly. Hell no. Well, yeah, it's awful. Like, I mean, we can't be giving this shit away to private companies like this all the time. Yeah, legal documents, yes, but not social media. Exactly. Like registering to vote. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you have to give your data away for, and that's fine. But the difference is that these are governments. And this is kind of what I was saying before. Do you see kind of like this apparatus that's being created where these online companies are creating basically a government? They're creating a government on the internet. They're creating a government on the internet with no accountability, no democracy, no representation, and no way of stopping it. That's the issue. Tracking data versus selling data is different. Yeah. Like this information should never go to a third party for-profit company.
Be the one to come in here and teach you why privacy is important, but I hope somebody has. This is not
if you play PlayStation, you know that.
Good thing. So in some of these processes, it's not always required to give your full ID and your like fucking, you know, credit card statements or anything. Instead, some may ask to like scan your face and everything.
Yeah.
Also still frowned upon. You still shouldn't do that either. This bill was paraded around like it was some righteous, you know, legislation that was aimed at protecting kids from accessing harmful content online, specifically porn. I'm sure a lot of you, if you've got your thinking caps on, if you're activating...
Surely now all the kids are going to stop looking at porn. We're just going to do this new law, and then all the kids won't see any more porn. It's going to go away. Problem solved.
Neurons can probably recognize a pattern since basically the beginning of time, the beginning of the internet here, where porn is always used as this ultimate boogeyman. It's the galactic...
Yeah, it's the really bad one. And in my opinion, I don't even think porn is the bad one. It's grooming that's the bad one. This person brings up a great point. LinkedIn uses a government vendor Clear. This is, I'm assuming this is the same Clear that you use in the airport too, in order to verify someone's identity. LinkedIn does not get the info specifically. Yes, exactly. This is reasonable. This is reasonable, and this is something that can work. But the problem is that the companies doing it themselves, that does not work. Absolutely not. Until they get hacked, anything will get hacked. The ISPs get hacked. Your computer can get hacked. Just because something can get hacked doesn't mean that you should just do everything with no level of like security. That's silly.
This level threat that they always have to pass legislation to combat. And to people that don't want to do any thinking and would rather have all their thoughts put into their head by the government on what they should and should not support, it sounds like a nice notion. You don't want kids having access to harmful content like porn online. That makes sense. But the second you make like George and get a bit curious and, God forbid, get into your ponder stance and start thinking and look into these type of pushes, you will recognize the goal is not to protect kids. It's not to protect anyone.
Yeah, it's a Trojan horse. It's a moral Trojan horse where they can use to push in censorship of political ideology, dissenting viewpoints, or anything that would challenge them in a way that they think is inconvenient.
Anything. These are called Trojan horses, where...
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
They push these through under a false pretense like this with so many huge detrimental consequences attached to it that impede on your freedom. They use this idea of protecting kids from harmful content as a way of getting this bill across the line that has really bad stuff in it. There is nothing good about handing over your freedoms. No. And it's even more sad how few people even recognize it happening in front of their face. And even beyond that, even more pathetic, is the people that are happy about it, that don't mind giving away all of their personal information.
Because they will sell your personal information too. This is another component that people might not realize, is that how many of you guys have ever signed up for something or given someone your phone number, and then you start getting phone calls from random places that you have no idea, like, who is this person? Like, what is this? Yeah, exactly. Like, that's why, like, the government will too. Well, the government hasn't done that yet. Or at least they don't do it very often. And yeah, every damn time. Exactly. And so, like, that's it. You have to change your number. Yeah, you have to change your phone number. It's very, very fucking annoying. When there is no product, you are the product. Well, people, they look for data, and they look for emails and phone numbers and stuff like that. And the reason why is because they sell that data and they use it as a resource. So when you sign up for, like, a free trial, it wasn't free. It cost you your phone number.
Was not about protecting children from accessing porn.
Yeah.
It did not just require ID to be provided for porn sites. It was required for anything that they deemed maybe potentially opening up children to harmful content. That includes Discord features. It includes some forums. It includes Twitter. It includes Reddit. Anything that could even be moderately argued opens them up to, like, adult content or harmful subjects is hit by this, requiring them to have age verification in place. Where you
I saw, like, the screenshots from the EU, and it's like you go through your profile, and it's like this picture is hidden, this post is hidden, you can't see this item, this one might not comply with regulations. Like, the entire fucking thing is, it's like when the CIA releases documents about UFOs, and it says, like, the date, and then, like, the year is blacked out, and then the entire screen and the entire page is blacked out, and it says at the very end, it says, did this, and that's it. It's all redacted. Yeah.
Provide an ID to prove you are 18 years or older in order to grant access to that. You know the whole meme of, like, oi, you got a license to be breathing that air?
Yeah.
Where it's all about, like, how over the top the UK is with this kind of bullshit. Well, now it has become beyond parody, where you actually need a fucking license to send Discord shit. You need a license for Wikipedia articles, basically. Wikipedia is being hit by this, by the way.
This is inevitable. I'm going to say this, people might not want to hear it, but I think that it's true. The internet being an unregulated Wild West never could have lasted forever. And it hasn't lasted. There is only the illusion of it lasting. The idea of having anonymity on the internet is 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, probably 999 times out of 1,000, a mirage. If the FBI wants to find out what you were doing on the internet, they're going to be able to do it. That's not the problem. The problem is private companies that are able to do this and that are able to exercise their own rules that are separate from actual laws. And also them using this as a way to effectively censor political discussion and political content. And you already have this happen in places like Iran. When the war in Iran was happening, Iran just turned off the internet. It all ended with the Patriot Act. Well, like, for example, like if you want to set up a bank account, it's pretty hard to do that without a government ID. If you want to get a driver's license, you have to verify that you are indeed a person and you're of a certain age. It's hard to get a driver's license unless you make a fake one. Like there are a million things in the world that you need to verify and check, right? And of course that's the case. The internet is not the internet that we grew up in. The internet is not an alternate reality. The internet is reality. People spend more time now on the internet than they spend in real life. So this entire idea that what you're doing on the internet and what you're doing in real life are these two totally separate worlds, that's not true anymore. It's just not. Like people are using their real names. Most people are. And you've got people on Twitter doing the same thing. People are using two-factor verification, authentication. They're attaching their phone numbers to their accounts. Nobody's really anonymous anymore. And it's not like in 2007 where it's just like random 4chan posters making, comments about Boxy. This isn't, the world has changed, and it's completely changed. It's no longer, the internet is no longer an alternate reality. It is a separate reality. And it is an augment to our reality. And for a lot of people like myself, the internet is reality. You spend more time on the internet in real life. And so it's completely over. Yes, times change. And so I think that with the times changing, there will be a level of accountability that has to follow that. Because you can't have people doing business, living their lives, and doing all of these things on the internet, and then having anonymity with everything. It's like driving around without license plates. It's like doing anything else without any form of identification. You have to have something. This was inevitable. But the problem is that, and this is what Charlie's talking about, and this is the big issue. If this happens, it can also be used to justify censorship and to be overly controlling. Like voting? Yes, exactly. There's so many bad sides to the interwebs? Yeah, of course there is, right? This is essential legislation. It's not necessarily essential legislation, but it's inevitable legislation. This will happen because there is the honest question that I think nobody can really answer in a genuine way. Where is the benefit of a 15-year-old girl having and posting on Instagram? There isn't any. There is literally zero benefit and only negatives. Literally fucking zero. And I think that there are, and that it's zero at best. That's really the big problem. And that's the reason why I think these people are going to be in this situation.
And they're trying to plead their case here about how detrimental this is, trying to bring some kind of sanity and reason back to the UK here in some capacity. I know this word gets tossed around a lot by a bunch of Redditors when tipping their fedora at anything they don't like.
Sure.
But this actually is dystopian. This is preposterous. This was never designed to protect kids from accessing harmful things like porn. It was designed for control and surveillance of their citizens. And it's being proposed in the US as well. If you thought this was an exclusive thought process just for the UK, you're very wrong. America would love to get their fingers in our buttholes as well, and
of course they would. Absolutely. And again, the people that want to do this, this is the problem. It's like always the old phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Very clearly, there are a lot of people that want to do this for good reasons, like to avoid grooming and to do stuff like that. But the problem is that those people are used as a Trojan horse to get in actual censorship. And I think that's what's happening in the UK. Because like as with most things like this, there's elements of it that I agree with.
Now have the Kids Online Safety Act that has been reintroduced in late May that aims to do something very similar here. It's a very common tactic where these proposed legislations will have things like, we have to protect the children. You know, another classic meme, think of the children.
Yeah,
well, it's a meme for a reason, because it is the go-to strategy for a lot of politicians, because it's very easy to drum up support under this false pretense. It is not about protecting kids. This isn't actually trying to stop kids from accessing porn. It is a convenient way for them to control your information and spy on you freely, openly, and easily. It is all about surveillance, control, and censorship. And all I can do is sit here and cross my...
He's completely right about this, by the way. This is the reason why something like this has to happen through a government authentication system that the individual companies have no awareness of, and they have no access to, only through a checking mechanism, like LinkedIn, for example. You can't have the companies doing this themselves.
Fingers and toes while kissing a rabbit's foot that we are lucky enough that this will be shot down as it has in the past in this country. But it's not guaranteed. Obviously, most people don't want kids accessing porn.
Yeah.
And in an age where information can spread so quickly, so wrongly, there's...
Well, everybody knows, like, this is something that's probably, like, politically incorrect to say this, but, like, if you were 12 years old now and you were in the UK, do you think this would stop you from looking at porn? Really? Like, I mean, let's just be honest about this. I don't even think this would put a dent in it. It's not going to change this at all. It's not going to do anything. Like, if I was a kid, this wouldn't stop me. I'd just work around it the same as I work around everything else. And so the real reason, and like this is the problem, is that because they're not willing to use an actual comprehensive system like South Korea, and they use these weird half measures, what they end up doing is all they're achieving is just censoring things and not helping anybody. And that's the big problem. Kids are the most resourceful. Well, they don't have anything else to do. I'd steal a relative's ID and use it. Yeah, sure, right? I mean, a million different ways of doing it. This isn't about porn. It's about corporate profits. I don't even think it's about that, honestly. I think it's about the government trying to create narratives and control narratives. That's really what's going on here. It's not even about corporations at all. We have an actual censorship supporter in chat. What is this here? Let me read this person's message. Why isn't he explaining how 12-year-olds get around it? How would they get around it? Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of ways, right? I mean, you could, so there's a way that you could use a parent's account. You could get on your parent's account. Like, that's what I did. Like, I mean, I just used my mom's account to go on the internet. Like, I used my mom's computer. Like, how many of you guys, whenever you looked at porn the first time, you just did it on the family computer? So, like, it's not even, like, so, like, your parents have it, and then you just delete the history. So, like, I mean, that's one way that's, like, really obvious, right? Opera browser has a VPN built into it? Yeah, sure. I'm just saying in general. Earlier messages. And what is this here? Just relax, guys. USA think a lot of peeps London equals the UK. This is so funny to us in the UK. We think America's overreacting. Destiny is the result of accessing porn easily. We've seen a negative of kids accessing porn easily. It's essential legislation. It's old school RuneScape streamers. What is this here? I'll let this person make one more comment, that I want to move on past this. That's something a 12-year-old would ask? Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a million different ways that you can get around rules like this. I mean, it's common sense.
There's a lot of people that might hear the tiddlywinks about this bill, think it's doing something that it's not, and support it. That's very possible. There has never been an easier time to get some really damaging freedom overturning bills passed than right now.
Yeah.
Because you control so much information so easily, and most people don't bother to spend even a fucking iota of a second researching any of the topics. It's
That's
just
the way with everything. Yeah, people don't
really concerning mix of ingredients here for like the possible perfect storm of no longer having an internet that you can access without providing identification. For some reason, it's become highly accepted and normalized that the internet is expected to cater to children being on it completely unsupervised.
That is the problem. That is the issue. I think that you can draw the line at social media websites and peer-to-peer messaging, but the idea that the entire internet needs to be sanitized, regulated, and controlled because some parent that's a shitty parent might not be able to control their kid going on a bad website, this is outrageous. I don't think that the entire population has to live with censorship because some parents can't live with accountability. It's a completely massive distortion, and it doesn't make any sense at all. It's also a lot harder now because parents give their kids iPhones. Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can check that probably, right? I mean, there's so many tools to manage it as well. You can install a keylogger to get parents' passwords. Yeah, exactly. You're making a good points, but I don't see proof for the Trojan horse argument. Sure. So basically, here's the point that I'm making. So anything that would be unacceptable for a kid to see. So do you think that violence and certain types of political extremism would be unacceptable for a kid to see? I think there would be a lot of people who would arrive at the conclusion that, yes, actually, it would be unacceptable for a kid to see it. So because of that, you could have things like the different pushes for, the lesser immigration in the EU, for example. You could have that be categorized as behavior that should be censored. They could easily make that argument. And I think that you could make that argument because really this is a complex adult political issue that really shouldn't be being shown to kids. This isn't really about kids. Kids don't understand that. And so, yeah, play the UK PM talking to Trump about this today. You mean whenever the UK PM said that you don't get in trouble for, saying things on the internet, but then there's like multiple examples of people getting in trouble for saying things on the internet? He's lying. He's saying something that's not true. And it's verifiably not true because you can look at what's happened to people and you can look at what laws they have. Why would you listen to what he's saying instead of looking at what he's doing? I don't even understand that.
And while that does happen, that is the fault of the parent, and the blame lies solely on the parent refusing to do their job in raising their own fucking kids. It is not the internet's responsibility to do that for them. Now,
the world does not need to be a padded room for you to bounce around in. This is the same viewpoint that I've had with like that 2% stuff. Why are we catering all of society around the dumbest, most irresponsible, most violent, abusive, aggressive, problematic, and antisocial people? Why are we doing that? It seems like a massive mistake.
You know, it's been very common for parents to just sit their kids in front of an iPad, creating these iPad kids, setting them up for failure, by refusing to actively be a part of their life and raise them.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that the internet needs to step in and change to do it for them. There needs to be the onus placed back on the household. The parents should be once again in charge of raising their kids. That's how it used to be, and that's how you had normal people develop. Not like...
And also the other problem is that back then you did have bad situations happen. And this is something that I think a lot of people might be uncomfortable discussing. But back then when you didn't have as many rules, you also had bad things happen to people. Absolutely. But that's life. Like, and in a lot of cases, I would want to have a world where, maybe bad things can happen, but you live with a little bit more freedom. And that's the case with a lot of things in the U.S. Like, for example, guns. Like, we can have guns here, and I can guarantee you if there were no guns allowed, there probably would be a net decrease in gun deaths. But does that mean that we should take away everybody's guns? No. It's the same as speed limits. If you took the speed limit down by 20 miles an hour, I bet probably you would have less accidents everywhere. But would that be better for everybody? No. So, again... don't fall for the illusion of safety and even a degree of safety and then trade away your entire freedom to it. Yeah, ban cars, save lives. Yeah, it's insane. And so, yeah, take the gun. Ban guns are bad, okay? Speed limits are unconstitutional. True, brother. Yep. And so left brain cannot tolerate unknowns and uncertainties. Freedom is the ultimate uncertainty. Well, and this is the problem, is that people have these like extreme viewpoints on things. And I think that I have a pretty moderate viewpoint on it, where I think that social media and peer-to-peer messaging apps should be regulated with a pretty high degree, and you shouldn't allow minors on those social media apps. But using the entire internet and making the entire internet like that without even having to log on is such a massive overreach that I don't agree with it at all.
This, not under the thumb of the government sticking its nose in your business. It is terrifying. Why have we just gotten to the point where we excuse bad parenting and instead force the internet to be the ones to be the parental figure, where everything is like babied to ensure a kid doesn't accidentally access fucking Wikipedia or something? It's completely preposterous. And on top of that, it's downright dangerous for everybody. You shouldn't be providing your identification and all of this data like this. It's just not good.
Well, and you can look at the T-app leak. I mean, the reality is that, I mean, yes, it's a hose-mad situation and we can all laugh at them and think that it's funny. But the reality is that these women are having their lives ruined, and now they have their picture posted online. Probably a lot of them, this really negatively affected them emotionally. And did they deserve it? I mean, like, I would say, yeah, kind of. But like at the same time, the fact that it can happen is bad. It's funny. Yeah, exactly. But like what I'm saying is that a bad thing happening to a bad person is funny, but it's still a bad thing. And the reality is that if a leak can happen to the T app, it can happen to other apps as well. Most hacking and most like database breaches, from my understanding, are just straight up social engineering. It's not like some guy uses some kind of like weird machine that he created and it's a headset that allows him to hack into the government with his mind. It's just a guy that's using someone else's credentials and then downloading the database to a hard drive and then taking the hard drive out of the building. That's what's really happening. And so, correct, I work in cyber. Yeah, I would say 90%, yeah, 95% are social engineering, phishing, and identity theft. It's not actual database breaches through genuine hacking. Our entire API was open with no passwords? Yeah, exactly. The T-app leak was a form of ethical hacking? No, it wasn't. It was not ethical hacking, because hacking would imply that you would have to get into something. They just put all of the... This guy basically said, okay, I'm going to take everybody's driver's licenses and put them in this box. And then some guy said, hey, what's this box? Damn, what are all these driver's licenses? Holy shit. Yeah, they didn't even get hacked. There was no security. In order to have hacking, you'd need to be bypassing security. Security wasn't even bypassed.
Really hope we don't see it come to America. I wanted to put all of this on your plate here, put it on your radar, because this is not something good. Don't let the propaganda fool you. It is not aiming to actually protect anybody or anything. No. It is solely for control and surveillance, trying to get more data from you to monitor your activities and ensure you are the drone they want you to be. This is not a good thing. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. That's it.
Fucking based. Absolutely. Absolutely 100% fucking based. Charlie is totally right about this. I think that, again, concessions will have to be made for certain things on the internet because the internet has become an integral part of our real lives. But the idea that the entire internet needs to be censored, regulated, and controlled because some parents can't control their kids. Here's the original fucking Child Safety Act. It's called parenting. That's it. That's what you need to do. And so, yeah, Europe is a testing grounds for the USA. Make sure to give the video a like. I totally fucking agree with them, right? Kids should be controlled, not the freedom. Yeah, definitely, right? The idea that you get arrested for online comment is a myth. You get arrested for hate speech, incitement to violence. Edgelords like to pretend otherwise. Okay, so like then you make an online comment and they say it's hate speech and you get arrested. Okay, so then you get arrested for an online comment. Okay, that's what I thought. I'm glad you cleared that up for me. Thanks. I was confused there, but now I understand. And so anyway, define hate speech. Yeah, I don't want to hear that bullshit. And anyway, I think the responsibility of keeping kids safe from danger should be given to the parents, not by making the internet shit for everyone. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, Democrats get their way. The same thing you see in Europe will happen in the U.S. Well, and this is also another big problem, is that everybody talks about this, but they don't realize that this type of behavior and this activity is what's going to be used as a foundation to censor other things like COVID. Like the exact rules that they're making right now for kids are rules that they will apply whenever COVID or something like that happens in the future. I'll be right back. Yeah, obviously, can you guys imagine them doing the exact same thing with COVID? I definitely can. I think anybody could. I'll be right back.
Nexus mods will and must follow the law. That's a direct...
Who looks at all the backlash the UK is getting?
Nexus mods will and must follow the law. That's a direct quote, it's a fun quote, and it's also why Discord currently wants to scan your face for seeing anything not safe for work, even if it's just a meme. And the thing is, this is not scaremongering, this is not dystopian fiction, it's actually happening right now, and on July 25th, it will become law. Law that's actually got teeth. As an example, Steam could lose $2.5 billion over a simple checkbox. That's 10% of their global revenue, and it's all because they ask, are you over 13? Instead of scanning your ID or scanning your face. But even before the law goes online, I have a totally different example of this literally killing a game. Here's one called Urban Dead. It's an online zombie survival game. It ran for 19 years, and then the Online Safety Act killed it. Not hackers, not bankruptcy, no, fear of an $18 million fine. And that is what the Nexus mod owner was talking about when he said that basically the law is the law and the site must follow it. Sites will need to fundamentally restructure themselves and change how audiences interact and share content online, because if they don't, they will face financial obliteration. And make no mistake, this may be starting in the UK, but it is already spreading. The internet is changing, and the deadline for compliance is here. So let's get into the impact. But there's actually another thing I noticed when I was tracking this story on Ground News. They're today's sponsor, they're a tool I used, and the news is this, that the UK has just declared that Apple and Google have got a, quote, effective duopoly over mobile. That's obviously interesting because regulation, this stuff does impact us, but it's cool looking at how this is actually being covered. Ground News here shows only 11 sources pick this up, and the bias split, well, 88% center coverage. Just one right-leaning outlet touching it and 0 left-leaning sources touching it. So guess what? I kind of knew about this before it spread, before other people did. But here's where it gets interesting. Framing. Financial Times says it's a shake-up to mobile platforms. BBC goes very straightforward with the effective duopoly quote. CNBC, though, well, they emphasize the market power, which is way more emotive. And what I see here is that even amongst high factuality rated outlets, well, what is it? Is it a shake-up? Is it a crackdown? Is it a, quote, signal to the market? It's the same regulatory announcement, but totally different narratives and framings over whether this is routine oversight or some sort of major confrontation, even though it's 100% high factuality ratings across all of the sources. And that's just a few of the ways the Ground is awesome. You can track different stories, you can set it up for your locality, and even get the blind spot feed. So for all of this, and to use the plan that I use, which is the Vantage plan, well, you go to ground.news/Bellular, and if you go there, you get 40% off unlimited access with the Vantage plan. It's the best deal that you'll get for my subscribers, and you'll find it in the link down below. Okay, July 25th, that's the deadline, and that is when companies must comply with the United Kingdom's Online Safety Act. And this means the services they offer will have to change, all because of this new UK legislation. What's the big focus then? Well, it's about protecting under 18s through hardline verification. Essentially, that means no checkboxes, real verification. You know the way as kids we would all click the little checkbox saying, I'm an adult, I'm totally allowed to use this service, even if we weren't. Yeah, that's no longer going to cut it from a legal perspective, and companies will be held liable. Now, this is going to apply to any website or service that's operating within the United Kingdom, and the penalty for breaking it is $25 million or 10% of global revenue, whichever one is higher. But it's not just the UK. Australia has actually got a similar law in the works. It's not taken effect yet, but it's at least on the way. And even looking at the US, we can see stuff in specific states. Florida are already banning under 14s from social media. Then there's Texas. They couldn't ban under 18s from social media entirely, but both Utah and Texas now demand something else, that companies must verify users' ages at the point of using an app store. And the EU, of course, has got new laws as well, and they've even got an open source tech solution for verifying ages. So overall then, here's the thing with all of this. It doesn't matter that respected organizations oppose this. And make no mistake, many of them do. The Wikimedia Foundation is calling these a massive threat. The Electronic Frontier Foundation are also not fans of this. They say it threatens online privacy, security, and speech. But these laws are moving forward anyway. The governments don't really seem to care that much about those criticisms. Now, we've already talked about this one before with Discord. If you remember, of course, the news breaking about not safe for work stuff on Discord, and you basically needing to validate your account with a facial scan or, piece of ID. Now, those systems exist, they're being tested for UK and Australian users right now, and it basically means if you want to access an adult tagged channel or server, then you'll need a scan of your face or your ID. This hit me when I was looking at my Warcraft guild's memes. It's like, hey, you want these memes? You gotta identify your face. Which doesn't really feel great. Now, the way this works is either your facial scan or your ID then goes to a third party. That third party will then confirm if you're allowed to access the content, and that will then basically flag your account as being allowed or not. And that essentially means that for Discord, they kind of just get a black box. And what they get out of that is this user validated? Are they not validated? All of your actual personal info, that's going to the third-party provider, which of course is one that would exist in a very heavily regulated space. Or so you would hope. Anyway, after all that scanning is done, then good, you can continue as normal. And if you think an American IP address would save you, then no. Think again, because we're already seeing these roll out across basically everywhere. It essentially seems that this is the way the wind is blowing globally, and because of that, loads of companies are changing things. That means established sites are restructuring at a fundamental level, and that is why we've got to talk about Nexus mods. Nexus mods had a choice: either block content geographically for EU and UK users or adjust the site accordingly. Of course, they chose to adjust, but so far they haven't actually said exactly what they'll do. So we've got no confirmation of like facial scanning or documentation checking, but they will have to implement some form of meaningful check in order to be compliant. What about everyone else? Well, they're redesigning the site to help with this whole EU and UK process, and some of that's actually good. It's going to mean new content tags, new filtering options, people will be able to block things like harmful substances as a tag if they really want. Basically, all of this stuff that's existing within wider adult content filtering. But on top of that filtering and categorization, the site's also getting some new tech, where basically it will be able to pick up on illegal or abusive content upon upload, or when it's posted to something like comments. Of course, that's how it'll work in theory. I'm sure there'll be false positives and false negatives, but that's at least the system that they're implementing. Now, to be clear, right, these are not new draconian rules from government. This is content that's already banned, right? Already banned on Nexus mods. Essentially, what's changed here is their incentive to robustly enforce the rules that they've already got. Where basically a lot of governments will say, all right, but a checkbox, an age checkbox with no verification, that just doesn't cut it. We all know what's going on. That's kind of what the governments will be saying. And yeah, it's okay if you've got a not allowed content policy, but if you don't enforce it, if you don't scan files, then what good is your policy? I'll leave specific thoughts about the nuts and bolts of this to you, but basically understand that it's all part of the same big old response to a lot of this new legislation, right? Better scrutiny, better review processes, more control for users, all of that stuff. But for Nexus mods, the timing was especially noteworthy. You see, some people connected these changes to the sale of Nexus mods. Yeah, you may not know it was actually sold. It was sold to a company called Chosen, who are a growth company, which does honestly sound a little bit spooky. But people basically argued that this was capitulation to, the growth company and line go up. They essentially said Nexus was doing this to avoid scaring potential investors, that it wasn't actually based on any principles. But at least if you listen to the owner of Nexus, who, obviously does have a horse in this race, Dark One, he did say that basically he's kind of relieved. Because with the sale, he's glad he doesn't actually have to deal with any of this bullshit anymore. But he did say that if it was still under his ownership and control, that he would still follow the letter of the law. Because the thing is, if he didn't, he would be fined 10% of global revenue, and the only way to get around that would be to just geo-restrict Nexus mods in entire regions, which probably wouldn't be tenable. The biggest problem, though, the letter of the law isn't 100% clear to everyone, and compliance itself is in fact a risk. Right, here's what you need to know about the actual law. So, the Online Safety Act passed in 2023, but UK government changes delayed things, as they so often do. The implementation process was long, so it actually took forever for details to emerge, like who's affected, how are they affected. Now, to deal with this, a UK organization, Taiga, have been helping games companies navigate these sorts of laws. They've been doing this for years, so what they're trying to do is get everyone ready for the deadline, which is essentially upon us right now. So what we can do is we can try to use their understanding of this law to guide us a little bit. Now, per them, any game available in the UK counts if users can interact. And that means user-generated content, text chat, voice chat, I guess maybe emotes, just basically anything that's user to user, which is absolutely huge in scope. This impacts so many games, so many websites. Now, it is fair to say that a lot of the requirements are already things that are common practice. That means risk assessments for under 18s accessing your game, content moderation tools, reporting tools, clear codes of conduct, basically that type of thing. Now, all of this is going to need designated individuals who report to Ofcom, who are the regulator, and that means you're going to need things like timelines for removing inappropriate content. Now, a lot of this already exists. A lot of this was already being done. It's just that it's being codified, and there really is teeth behind it. And of course, the framing is, as it always is, the protection of the children. And that is where the age verification thing comes in. That is why you'll be asked for your face and your ID far more often. Basically, anything risky goes behind an age gate because that just manages risk, and that's all that these companies basically want. They just want to dodge all of this shit and have to spend as little of their money as they possibly can. So far, most requirements just involve cataloging risks. What are the companies actually doing about those risks? Well, Ofcom have been reviewing these reports since spring. Once they're done reviewing, they'll issue some guidance, and then the fine stuff won't actually kick in until late autumn this year. So at least there's a little bit of time where I mean, it won't just be, hey, it's the 26th of July. I would like 10% of your global revenue, please. Thank you very much. That would be a little bit hasty. Anyway, the effects are already damn clear here. With big companies, we see it in the way of compliance, but with others, we're actually just seeing people not willing to take the risk. Especially, say, those who are running specialist forums. Yes, if you're running a specialist forum, you might have to deal with this. I suppose we as an organization won't have to deal with this because, like, we have our members' Discord. That's on Discord, so it's Discord's thing. But, you know, if we were to roll our own forum, I suppose we would actually have to deal with something like this. It would probably mean I'd have to have another software subscription to some company that, like, just provides compliance services. That's one of the things that happens, right? You'll have new regulatory guidelines, and then loads and loads of companies will exist to provide compliance services. Now, a casualty of this is Urban Dead. It ran for 19 years, 8 months, and 11 days. It's actually one of the longest running browser games on the internet, and the Online Safety Act has in fact killed it. Now, it was a text-based MUD, multi-user dungeon. It's something from a long time ago. But yeah, text-based MUD. It's got a cult following. People love it, but of course, because there was people there, well, the game was allowing for user interaction, which would mean it would be subject to this law. And that then meant that this game, which is a community-supported project, faced a fairly large dilemma. They either spend significant money to refit the game and refit their infrastructure to fit all of this, or risk a fine of up to £18 million, or just simply end support and take no chances. And unfortunately, they chose the latter. They have shut down. And the worst part, right? Projects like Urban Dead, things that are of true deep value to people, they're just collateral damage because we all know they're not the real target of this legislation. I hope I'm not stating the obvious when I say this is a law built for the big players like the Instagrams, the TikToks, social media in general. It's why Reddit now requires a selfie or ID to access 18+ rated subreddits. Basically, the bigger your audience, the more stringent the rules. And to meet the criteria, you needed to be filling out risk assessments and doing all of that work months ago. Of course, those companies are really big, so they can. They have whole departments to do shit like this. And of course, it does also include gaming. As an example, Roblox is adding age verification, plus they're going to limit chats for 13 to 17-year-olds. If you're wondering how, well, it's by forcing them to scan real-world QR codes from their friends. But you might then wonder, what about traditional platforms, the ones we use more, like, say, PSN, Xbox, Steam? Well, that's where it's bad for Steam. You see, PSN has been good for years where they do mandate age verification for UK and Ireland users. They basically use the same tech that Discord uses. Xbox lets you make locked child accounts, but regular Microsoft account creation, it's just a CAPTCHA. There's no other limits. You can just log into Xbox directly and message people, though you would need to add them as friends first. So definitely risky there. But as for Steam, well, for them, it's just a tick the "Are you over 13" box. That's it. That's all you need to create a new account. Now, there are limits for direct messaging, right? Where you can't DM people until you've spent at least $5. So in theory, right, like a debit or credit card check is verification, but Steam also lets you add cash via gift cards. And that would basically circumvent the card check verification side of things. And then, of course, there's the Steam forums, which are fully visible from the start, as are streams. Those can obviously be full of adult content, and the adult content filters are on by default, but obviously can easily be turned off. And we all know what your Steam front page looks like if you turn off all of those filters and go to new and noteworthy. There's a lot of porn. So, does this mean that Valve and Microsoft are breaching UK law? Well, in a way, we won't really know until Ofcom publishes like a naughty list and starts threatening people for 10% of their global revenue. Or, I suppose, until these companies make the compliance changes. But make no mistake in your expectations. With the scope of these fines, these companies absolutely will be making changes. And that's because the penalties are huge. Here's the simple truth, at least how we see it. Any company that allows users to post content must reckon with these laws. And if they operate in these territories, they must comply. Because these laws are being implemented. Compliance will be enforced. Now, yeah, users hate verifying identities. I don't enjoy it. It's not fun. I mean, you'll accept it if it's something like registering to a bank, but it does feel weird if it's Discord or something innocuous. But companies are not going to risk losing 10% of their global revenue. Again, not geographical profit, no, global revenue. That's a fuckload of money, and it goes deeper than that. They also won't risk the reputational damage of being the first company fined. Now, they can lobby, they can try workarounds, but the risks are just too great. It is just like the Nexus Mods man said, the law is the law, and these companies will and must follow the law. Because funnily enough, they're big companies, they face incentives, and they are going to follow their incentives. And that means that your experience on these sites and with these games will change. But that's not it. You see, if you love legal stories like this, there is one swirling around PlayStation and basically artificially inflated high prices. There's lawsuits popping up all over the world, and to learn about that story, you can watch this video next.
Oh no! Oh no! So Trump did actually make comments about Epstein.
Well, I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this, those files were run
you're welcome for
by
that.
the worst scum on earth. The whole thing is a hoax. They can put things in the file that are fake. Those files were run by bad, sick people. But they were run by my enemy. If there was anything in there, they would have used them for the election.
I just don't know why. If you thought they were being run by the enemy and you thought they had altered the files, then why would you bring on multiple people into your staff as cabinet members that advocated for releasing the files? It just doesn't make sense. And especially like he's alluded to, like, you know, Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton being involved. Like, that's the issue, right?
I don't do drawings. I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings. Sometimes people say, would you draw a building? And I'll draw 4 lines and a little roof, you know, for a charity stuff. But I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women. They say there's a drawing of a woman. Do you know that my poll numbers are up 4.5 points since this ridiculous Epstein stuff? Because people don't buy it. And he's...
I just feel like they'd be up by 10 points if you just posted it and it implicated people that you thought were implicated, like Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
This is, but I don't like this. I think it's
gone, and we want to focus on trade deals. And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
Trump's 100% hiding shit. At this point, so much of this doesn't make sense to me at all. I think one of Trump's biggest strengths is his ability to read a room and effectively figure out what people are thinking. What's weird about this situation with Epstein is that it's like he's totally off base with it in a way that I would have never expected.
So we finally found him, ladies and gents. We found the one guy that has something nice to say about Skull and Bones. I think I know where he's going with this video. This is Mr. Fruit, who you guys say blew up with like Destiny coverage, I believe, back in the day. 2 million sub channel. Can you imagine? Oh, baby. But in this video, he's just simply titled it, Hear Me Out. Skull and Bones. And apparently this is a video in defense of Skull and Bones, explaining why he likes it and what is good about it. My prediction for this, I think he's going to basically say for what it is, it's a good game. Like as a game where you sail around in ships and do tedious things, it's good. If you ignore what we wanted it to be, if you ignore the like legacy of Black Flag, if you ignore all of that, it can be good. I think that's the spin we're gonna get. We'll see if I'm right, but that's my personal guess. Because otherwise, I don't know how you could have nice things to say. But let's see, dude. I've even met people at Ubisoft. When I went to Ubisoft Quebec back in, I think it was January for AC Shadows stuff, they were cracking jokes about Skull and Bones. Like even they were cracking jokes about it, being like, oh, "You didn't buy that, did you?" And they work for the company, so even Ubisoft is like, "Oh yeah." But yeah, I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded. Convince me. Show me the error of my ways. What have I got wrong?
That's right. I'm talking about the world's first quadruple A game. Hear me out. Skull and Bones. The game delayed so long, everyone thought it would get canceled, but apparently legal reasons prevented Ubisoft from doing so. The pirate game where boarding an enemy ship is just a simple cutscene. Yeah, that game. For those who know about Skull and Bones, I wager majority of you know of it, but have never played it. Only hearing about it through controversy or negative press, I imagine. For everyone else, let me explain. Skull and Bones is a naval online action RPG created by Ubisoft. It was first announced during their 2017 E3 press conference. Its initial release date was set to be the fall of 2018. They ended up narrowly missing that target date by about 6 years. It finally released in February of 2024. The initial reveal of the game made it seem something more akin to a hero shooter, but with pirate ships. What we ended up getting was quite the opposite. Instead, it's now an online open-world RPG with resource gathering, crafting, leveling, quests, progression, and more. What people were expecting was something akin to Assassin's Creed Black Flag's naval combat, but multiplayer. Skull and Bones is not that. And I wouldn't really say it's a pirate simulator either. In fact, the Steam store calling it a naval online action RPG is pretty apt. I found that I started to enjoy it when I stopped thinking about what it could be and instead played it for what it is.
This happens a lot, to be fair, where a lot of people will critique and discuss games because they don't live up to what they wanted it to be, and they're frustrated by that, and so it's therefore bad. But you have to always kind of meet the game sort of in a halfway spot between what you were hoping it would be, what you imagined it would be, and what it is and what they were trying to make. Otherwise, it's just unfair. Like if you play the original Last of Us game and you're pissed off because it doesn't have an open world, like that's a stupid reason to not like The Last of Us. You know, like it's not what it was trying to be. So of course it's not going to have that, and it's not going to be good at that thing because it's not what it is. With Skull and Bones though, I feel like it's really tough to separate out the legacy of Black Flag from it, because even, I mean, it's easy to forget now, but Black Flag launches in like 2014. It's beloved, almost immediately a classic. People eat it up and adore it. And over the next 3 years, which is, it's weird to think Black Flag to 2017 is only like 3 years, but over the course of the next 3 years, there's leaks, there's rumors of them. 2013, okay, so 4 years. There's leaks and rumors over, you're right, because Unity's 2014. But over the next few years, there's leaks and rumors of a Black Flag game being made for like multiplayer, like a big MMO sort of Black Flag game, and people are really excited about that. They're like, interesting, that could be cool. And so immediately the expectations started to be set, and it just kind of makes sense. Ubisoft just made a really well received and appreciated pirate game. They're doing an online game. They're probably going to do basically Black Flag but online. And I think that is why the expectations immediately started there. The other problem for Black Flag, as I'm sure he's going to get into, is that over the next, you know, after they announced it, 6-7 years, it changed so much, so many times, that by the time it came out, nobody knew what it was supposed to be anymore. Nobody knew what the vision was because it had changed like 3-4 times. I think they went through 3 separate game directors over the course of that like 6-7 year period. I see what you're doing, Lames. I see what you're doing.
It's less a pirate game and more a pirate ship game. Think of your character as the pirate ship, and the game makes a lot more sense. The game's been out for...
Yeah, dude, they have healer ships. Which, like, it's just so insane. Like, again, like, okay, we're just going to make Overwatch, but with ships. That's kind of what it started as. And so they had healer ships, and you're going to launch these barrels that heal other ships. And of course, your ship has stamina, which got memed into oblivion. The idea was basically, no, it's not the ship that has stamina, it's the crew that has stamina, but it also feels weird. So, yeah, it's just, but he's right. It's a pirate ship game. It's not a pirate game.
For over a year now, and just recently entered its Year 2 Season 2 update. So, why now? And honestly, it's because I saw some tweet months ago about how they're looking into on-foot combat and had some teaser footage. I'm not sure when it's planned to enter the game, but that tweet did one major thing for me. It reminded me that this game exists. And then imagine my surprise when I find out it's still getting updates. Not only that, but we're talking potential major overhauls like on-foot combat? The heck they doing over there? Now look, Ubisoft can be a bit of a red flag, so I understand your hesitation. But I'll give them one thing. They end up supporting games for a lot longer than I or anyone else think they probably would. I don't know if this is more of the legal behind-the-scenes stuff that we're not privy to, which seemingly forced them to see the project to completion in the first place. So perhaps there's something about providing X amount of years of updates post-launch. But here's what I do know. I'm glad they are. Because
here's what I think, and I've said this in videos I've done on this. I think they are keeping this alive, afloat, dare I say. They're doing it specifically because there is the rumored Black Flag remake that's coming late at the end of this year, probably more like early next year based on current understandings of where the game is in development. But they have a Black Flag remake coming out, and that works out where they're going to be adding on-land combat at almost exactly the same time or right before that Black Flag remake comes out. So I think their goal is to basically get the game to be, at least structurally and in terms of format, what people wanted it to be, which is Black Flag, but online with friends. And then they're going to announce Year 3 content support right as Black Flag comes out, and they're going to do some big cross promotion where like, oh, you get Edward Kenway, or there's an Edward Kenway quest within Skull and Bones or something like that. And they're going to try to bring people over who play Black Flag's remake and are like, that was awesome, I want more of that. And they're like, yeah, we have more. We do over here in Skull and Bones. And their hope is that they can win people over with that. And I think it's not a bad idea, honestly. Like if they can actually get decent hand-to-hand combat some decent new questing and things like that make it not so repetitious. I think it actually could be genuinely successful, because as I said from the outset, like all the way back in 2017, I'm sure I said this basically, just that if they did Black Flag online, I think that's successful. I think people would play that and enjoy it. Just Black Flag, but with friends. I think that does well, but that's not what Skull and Bones is. But they're actually slowly morphing it into that, which is why I think we could actually see sort of a comeback for Skull and Bones. It's not impossible. It's not impossible, dude.
Because here's the hottest take you'll hear all day. Skull and Bones kind of slaps. So after seeing that tweet,
I'm willing to be convinced. Convince me.
I made a note to hop back into Skull and Bones when I had a chance to see what's up, just as a refresher, so I'd remember to keep my eyes out for whenever this big overhaul update thing is coming. I logged on expecting to spend a few minutes putzing around, and instead, well, I've been Skull and Bones pilled for a week.
Dude, 65 hours?
Jimbo404 donated $10 through Super Chat. Let him cook.
Thank you for the 10. Let him cook. He's burning at this point. You know, I'm open-minded. I want to hear the case, because I've gotten to play. I've not put in 65 hours, to be fair. I did get to play a very late end game build on a couple of occasions as part of like preview events that they did. So I have tried end game Skull and Bones. I just didn't have to grind for it. And even then I was like, my problem is with the format and the content. Like there's not enough content there, at least yet, but let's see.
Now. So instead of
dude, if this was sponsored, it'd be very funny. Can you imagine? I'm waiting for the shoe to drop. It's sponsored. No. He's got Advanced GG as a sponsored new fruit lemonade. Okay, cool.
Spending more time telling you what it is, what it could have been, the problems people have with it, or why many didn't give it a chance. Mind you, I'm not saying that stuff isn't important or that the people were wrong for thinking that. I'm just here to tell you why I'm loving Skull and Bones, and I never thought that would be a sentence to come out of my mouth. Let me walk you through a typical Skull and Bones gameplay loop. You log in and grab as many bounties, quests, and jobs as you can hold from one of the two major outposts. You ensure you've got enough food and ammo for your voyage, collect any resources that were refined while you were away, and queue up some more. You look at the new ship blueprint you've been dying to craft, and then track the recipe so you remember what items you need while you're out sailing. You almost forget to go to your illegal hideout to check in on your black market enterprise. Perhaps there's some interesting supplies available or new orders to fulfill. Finally, you set sail. You pull up your map and try to decide what to do first. Should I go based on proximity or interest? By infamy to gain or loot to be plundered? You finally make a decision and, almost without fail, come across something that distracts you along the way. It could be a convoy escorting some supply ships that are just asking to be plundered, a rival gang of pirates who ambush you after noticing some black market materials you have on board, a roaming boss with a hefty bounty you could claim, a giant sea monster that reminds you you're going to need a bigger boat, or even a sudden call for help from other players who need help with their current objective. Whatever it turns out to be, it begins a chain of events that never seems to stop. And there's always something to fight. Each server holds up to 16 players, and while the world is fairly large, you'll usually happen upon a few during your journey, even if you don't answer any of these SOS calls. Personally, whenever I see a fellow pirate engaged in an event, I almost always try to help. I know how much I appreciated it when other people helped me, especially when I was lower level, so I just try to pay it forward. Yarg, that's a wholesome. Suddenly you found yourself...
Yarg, that's wholesome. So maybe it's just me. Like, my brain does not get a dopamine rush from doing like the same thing so many times unless the reward is significant. Like if I'm grinding in Monster Hunter and I'm trying to get like, you know, the plate I need, or I'm trying to get a gem or whatever I'm trying to get, the grinding might get tedious and frustrating, and it's like, I fought this Odageron 15 times, I'm going crazy. And you're just going through the motions because it's the same thing. Just like with this, it's the same fights against the same types of ships over and over and over again. But you put up with it because you know the reward's going to be so good. And, you know, in that case, you finally get the plate you need or the whatever material you need. You get to craft the armor, and it's a rush. And it makes it all worth it, right? In this, I like, you get to upgrade the ship a little bit. You might get some new cosmetics and stuff. But in my experience with Skull and Bones, there's so much grind associated with such little payoff that it's really tough to get that dopamine payoff to make it worth it. Yeah, like the cosmetics report also. Well, and I don't know. I liked that in Black Flag, you know, as you're doing upgrades, they're tangible, but they're also like not just like you see it visually represented on the ship, but it also can totally alter and change the gameplay. It can change what types of ships you're able to take on and fight against. It can significantly change it. With live service games, the age-old problem is that they're trying to make something you can play for hundreds of hours. So they have to break down those big leaps of improvement into smaller bite-sized portions. So you can, you know, oh, I got a 1.5% damage boost. Ooh, I got a plus 50 to my health. Now I have 4,085 health instead of 4,035. Like, they're trying to make it small enough that there's lots of content for you to grind. But that means that each improvement is pretty minimal and iterative over time. And I don't know, at least for my brain, it just does not tickle anything. Like it doesn't give me the dopamine rush to keep me grinding. But maybe some people it works with them and their brain chemistry, and it's enough to keep them engaged. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Why does he sound like Mario trying to do a pirate accent? That's a little funny. Hold on.
When I was lower level, so I just try to pay it forward. Yarg, that's a wholesome. Suddenly you...
Dude, that's pretty close, Katie. Yeah, he sounds like Mario trying to do a pirate accent.
Me, especially when I was lower level, so I just try to pay it forward. Yarg, that's a wholesome. Suddenly...
I was like, yarg. That's a wholesome.
You found yourself in quite a few kerfuffles. Perhaps you plundered a fort or two. You bought some supplies from a settlement, completed a side quest, and collected a few resource nodes. Before you know it, your ship's cargo hold is completely full. So you find the nearest place to dock. Upon arriving, you realize one of those treasure maps you looted off a random ship leads to a chest in this location. You don't pretend yourself into thinking it's at all trivial, since there's a giant claw emanating from the very goods. You dig it up, gather goods, and dump all non-essential.
That's the other thing with Skull and Bones, is the inventory menus and stuff are ungodly. Like, look at this. Like, I feel like you need to just take 10 minutes to understand what each menu is trying to even tell you. It's just like a cargo box full of garbage, and then another one in your warehouse full of food and other garbage. Like, it's just so tough to read. It's not well sorted. It's
essentials into your
I'm sure you get
warehouse.
used to it.
With a lighter load, you take assessment once more to see what's next on the docket. If perhaps that something is on the other side of the world, as long as you've unlocked a fast travel point, you pay a small silver fee to make the trip much shorter and to start your conquest anew. That, in a nutshell, is Skull and Bones. A combination of different events happening around this fantastical pirate world that are always just enticing enough to get you to join. And why do I say fantastically? Well, I mean, literally, it's like a fantasy world. I mean, look, I'm fighting a freaking dragon, bro. And with everything you do, you're always rewarded. Whether it be resources, weapons, ship furniture, infamy, challenge progress, different currencies, etc.
Dude, I forgot about the furniture. That's like the buffs and the perks for your ship is like, oh, you want to do an increased amount of damage or something? Let me put a new chair. Like, that's how they do it.
Now, I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't get repetitive, because it does. But the thing is that I don't feel like I'm just doing the same things over and over. Somehow it always feels a little different, and I always have a different goal in mind when setting sail. I actually just finished the main story quests in World Tier 1, finally making my way to World Tier 2 for the first time, only to be greeted with a surprise more main quests, only available in World Tier 2. Not to mention, I upgraded my first ship to the max level. This little baby pirate's all grown up. It's just perfect for my ADHD brain. It's just carrot after carrot, and I get to choose which carrot I want to chase. All of them. It's the secret. I usually chase all of them. At this point, I've nearly defeated every boss and megafort in the game, but happening upon them for the first time was always fun.
See, he says it scratches his ADHD brain. My ADHD brain makes me just like, not enough dopamine. I'm bailing. I'm going back to that other game. Like, that's what it does to me, is it makes me fall off of these games. But I guess some people have an ADHD brain that it keeps them hooked, because it's like, ooh, piece of little candy. Maybe I'm spoiled and I want more from my games. But then again, maybe I don't have an ADHD game when it comes to, or a brain when it comes to gaming. Because I love games that are a lot slower and more immersive too, like KCD2. I don't think a lot of ADHD gamers are putting a ton of hours into KCD2, you know?
And kept that feeling of discovery alive. Like there was always something new waiting for me. I'll never forget the first time I saw a rogue wave in the deep ocean. My crew started yelling, I started panicking. I knew I pooped my pants. Sure, soon I'll have technically beaten most of the unique things at least once. Therefore, I'll be repeating them after that. But that's okay. I haven't quite hit that loop yet, and I have over 50 hours of playtime, and even when I do, I'll have a reason to do them again with different ways to approach them. I haven't touched on all the different ships in the game yet, but I will. And that's a big way to really change your gameplay experience. Now, I think I'm probably a little behind progression-wise versus how much time I played, but it's proof of how much fun I'm having. I've just been playing for the fun of it, doing whatever tickles my fancy at the time, without following any guides or having any prior knowledge, and playing all of it completely solo. You can have a group of up to 4 pirates, but I've been out on the seas with only my own devices. And I don't feel like I missed out. Would it be more fun if I had some friends to play and squad up with? Yeah, probably. But to me, any game is just...
And finding friends to play this with you is tricky. There's not a lot. There's not a lot, you know. I'm sorry, but this type of UI just makes me feel nauseous. It feels like I'm playing a cheap Chinese mobile game knockoff of Black Flag. It says real serious with the super chat. I think, yeah, the UI is one component where it burns me out, and I get, I don't know, it's just too busy. It's way too busy. With a game like this, why do you need friends? Dude, it's like with Suicide Squad. I've told the story 1,000 times, but dude, with Suicide Squad, I wanted to grind that out with friends, like a full party, and I offered to buy Suicide Squad for my friends from college to play through the whole game with me. It's like, I will buy you the game if you just grind it out with me. And they said no. They were like, nah, I'm good. And it's kind of similar to Skull and Bones. It's like, hey, dude, I'll buy it for you. That's okay. No need. I'm busy that day. I haven't told you what day it is, though. I'm gonna be busy. Trust me, I won't be available. I promise you. In a year, won't be available that day.
Better playing with friends. The key thing is I don't think it takes away from my experience. Sure, there are some events and bosses in the game that require you to have more than one person, usually because it's specifically balanced as a group activity, but all I have to do is look at it, hold a button, and it'll send out a call for help to everyone in the server. Although I gotta admit, I just did my first run of the new Megafort that was added in year 2.
Donated $10 through Super Chat.
Still looks pretty good.
Pirate Yakuza for the win. Would much rather play that masterpiece of insanity.
Dude, that masterpiece of insanity is right, Kane. Pirate Yakuza, what is it? It's Pirate Yakuza, Pirates in Hawaii. I don't remember the full title. Yeah, that one is an acid trip. Like, it is just crazy. Like, it's one of those, like, have you ever played a game or like watched a movie? Maybe is a better example. You watch a movie and you're like kind of falling asleep while you watch it, and so your brain then takes the story and then extrapolates it in a dream realm. So you dream a lot of things in the movie that didn't happen, but your brain is like tying together dialogue and stuff that it's hearing from the show or movie into your dream version of it, and it's even more insane. That's Pirate Yakuza. That's the entire game. It's like that dream altered delirious insanity. That's Pirate Yakuza. It's just ridiculous. It's insane. Like 1 minute they're having a serious conversation about, you know, this child and his role within the world with a father who's past his prime and has a drinking problem. And then the next moment there is literally a dance number taken straight out of a Broadway musical, and they're all singing and dancing around the ship. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
To Season 2, and I was smiling like a little kid for a couple minutes there, I won't lie. You queue up and then get match made into their biggest activity yet. You face this behemoth of a base, but not alone. You can match with up to 20 players, and it's just awesome seeing it all in action. It's like Avengers assembling. And shout out to the guys playing the heal and support ships or belts. You're the goats. I should also note that in this open world, there is PvP. However, it's toggleable. So if you're looking for trouble, you can flag yourself, but most people are only flagged for PvE, myself included. Note, though, that from what I can tell, open world PvP, there's not a lot of stakes. You can just get into some fun gunfights with people. If you die, you drop some of your cargo, but it's the same as if you were to die to PvE. You just sail back and pick it up. The person who killed you can't steal your stuff, if that makes sense. So some might say, well...
Which is funny because it's a pirate game.
Then what's the point? Fair, I get just for the fun of it. Although they recently added the first PvP dedicated mode to the game called Death Tides. I've only played once, and I'm going to look more into once I get towards in-game and PvP-specific builds. There's also certain events that occur in the world that will toggle you to PvP for that specific event. So for instance, there might be a legendary treasure map that appears, and 2 people can choose to fight over it, trying to be the first to grab the map and sail to the treasure's destination first. Though, admittedly, the majority of the PvP events are vacant. I think some of them don't give enough incentives for players who have already done a lot to do them again, or as a newer player, you're almost guaranteed to be a lower level, so you're just at a disadvantage. In my 50 hours, I've played a fair amount of PvP events. and only a handful of them had anybody, and it would just be one person. Although, to be fair, like I mentioned, the first like 30 hours, I didn't bother because I was so low level. I just get stopped. But now that I'm on par with levels, I actively try to get in the PvP with people. I think they're doing some stuff to better incentivize those missions, though, and I think that'll be fun. I'm sure these were all way more full towards the initial launch when everyone was on more equal ground progression-wise. I'm just here for some good pirate vibes. But speaking of pirate vibes, one, there's sea shanties. So, yeah, of course I'm in.
I just can't get over how like, again, it's a pirate game, but they seemingly have stripped out a lot of the pirate mechanics as well. So it just turns into, like, I don't know. It's just such a weird game.
Different pirate ships. I believe with the introduction of the game's first ever large-sized ship in Year 2, Season 2, the game has a total of 14 unique ships and are adding more as time goes. Most importantly, each ship has its own playstyle. The first thing that determines this is obviously their size. You have the extra small, there's actually only one, and it's the little dinky raft you get at the start, small, medium, and for the first time, large. Each one decides different factors such as health and defense of your ship, top speed, acceleration, turning capabilities, weapons, and the quantity of them. That's because the bigger the ship, the more gun ports. So while a small size ship might boast one bombardier, a medium could fit 2. A small would have 8 cannons per side, but the newly added frigate would have 13. Then you have the classes, which mimic the classic Holy Trinity: DPS, tank, and support. Each ship also has their own unique traits and resistances. I spent most of my time playing with the medium ship called the Sandbug. It's a DPS ship that's all about fire damage. Its unique perk makes it so that when you set an enemy ship ablaze, which is a burning damage over time effect that occurs once you stack enough fire damage, it immediately triggers a massive amount of damage, lets you deal increased damage to ships that are ablaze, and most importantly, spreads to nearby ships if they're close enough. It's stupidly fun to get a bunched up group of ships, set one on fire, and see the fiery domino effect. It never gets old.
See, this is what's also funny about this is that Skull and Bones now, like they describe it as an action RPG, but based around ships and building out different version of your ships based on the furniture you have on the ship. It's very, very weird, and it's not at all what I would have thought they would do with Skull and Bones, but it goes back to his primary thesis, which is if you play Skull and Bones for what it is, you can have fun with it as like an ARPG that is just about customizing your ship. It's not actually about being a pirate. And I think that's just the small distinction that, you know, they disconnected with players over, is that a lot of players wanted it to be a pirate game, not a pirate ship game. That's the difference. But going back to this, I won't go through like absolutely everything in the videos because I want you to still check it out and watch it yourself. There is a good amount of stuff here, empire opportunities and stuff. I do think there is a way for them to build this out into a game that people could connect with. I think it was just mismatched expectations. And then I think, again, like, just at the end of the day, a lot of people thought that it was going to be a pirate game, not a pirate ship game. And so it just fundamentally is not the game that they wanted it to be. And now they're like, okay, well, never mind, you know? So I hope they can continue working on it, because of course it'd be good if they could make a comeback. I mean, imagine how freaking funny it would be if Skull and Bones actually pops off and ends up becoming like, if it was actually something that would be, wildly popular and like it gets an audience and starts doing really well. It would be really funny, and I would have to give them credit for it, honestly. But still, for the triple or quadruple A advertisement didn't help either, dude. And I've said this before, but I spoke to somebody at Ubisoft who knows, okay, this person pretty high up, and they said that at that earnings call or whatever it was, Yves Guillemot had a piece of paper in front of him with all of the text on it for what he should say. This is an earnings call. This is something where investors are listening for every word or absence of words to determine whether they should move hundreds of millions of dollars in and out of your company, okay? Everything is written down, checked by lawyers, checked by the finance team. Everything is double and quadruple checked to make sure it's all exactly what it should be. And Yves is reading off of that, and apparently that line about Skull and Bones really being a quadruple A game, that was ad-libbed. He was supposed to be reading from the sheet, and that line, the quadruple A mention about Skull and Bones, was something he said off the cuff that was not approved or on the paper. So everybody that was sitting there was just like, what did he just say? We're gonna get toasted over. What was he thinking? Like, what he meant was, in terms of budget, we spent quadruple A money on this game, which was true. but that does not mean that it looks like it or plays like it. You know, it's a separate thing. It's a separate question. It was flippin' hilarious. Flippin' hilarious to see that there was that disconnect.